This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Friday. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I just took a toque off. My hair's all over the place, but we will get by. Great to have you all with us. I am fired up, and I know the rest of this city and provinces as the Bombers are 2 days away from kicking off in the 108th Grey Cup and looking to bring back that trophy to the peg and keep it here for another 365 days. Welcome to the program, Andrew Paterson, along with Michael Remis. And we have an absolutely monster show today heading into the weekend and Grey Cup. Farhan Lalji is going to join us from Hamilton. We'll check in on with Farhan a little bit later on. Tait is going to join us in about 15 minutes from Blue Bombers practice. We're also going to tee up the game with my guy Dustin Nielson, who'll be doing the national radio call for the game. And we're not forgetting about the Winnipeg Jets after a big win last night. Scott Billeck is now in Vancouver after being in Seattle yesterday. We'll find out what Scotty's got going on heading into the game tonight, what he thought of Seattle, the new arena, and of course the Jets' big 3-0 win last night. Big thanks to all of our sponsors that make this program happen every day. F Apparel, Vita Health Fresh Market, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, the Great Taste of Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, our betting partner at Cool Bet Canada. If you have the opportunity to support our sponsors, please do. This show does not happen without their support. So let's get right to it. We got to talk about last night's hockey game, and of course, the anticipation continues to rise for kickoff on Sunday afternoon. Heard from a couple commissioners this morning as well. Randy Ambrosi with the State of the League. We'll talk about that with Farhan a little later on. And Gary Bettman at the Board of Governors meetings, providing social media with quite a bit of fodder with his comments about the Coyotes. We'll get to all of that as we get into the program. But right now, without further ado, let's welcome in the brains of the operation, the one, the only Michael Remis to the program. Remo, what's going on? How are you?
I'm feeling great. It's a Friday, Grey Cup Friday. I mean, heading into the weekend. We had a Jets win. That's great. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm having a good laugh at the Gary Bettman stuff. Like how much we want to touch on this. But, you know, I was really starting to like him around 2011. You know, the Jets came back. He actually got cheered at a MTS Center. And then, you know, he's embracing the heel role. But, I mean, for him to go out and say there's nothing going on, there's nothing to see here while he's, like, standing in the burning building that is the Arizona Coyotes, it's insulting to everyone. Like, at one point, you know, they've gone through different owners, different arenas. The team hasn't been any good, which hasn't helped. At what point do they just throw his hands and be like, you know what, this isn't working. Let's go. And you have to wonder, like, how much money they've lost, or sorry, opportunity costs they've lost trying to make it work for so long when, like, here and for a while, you know, Quebec City, other cities, you know, who already support hockey would gladly take on the Coyotes and give them a home. It's kind of sad at this point. Sorry to get into this off the top after a big Jets win.
It is a bit of a circus. The quote, the money quote today from Bettman was, quote, "It's clear that the city of Glendale has an edge or agenda in terms of how they're dealing with the Coyotes." I went out for dinner last night and it was wonderful. And, you know, it turned sour though when my server apparently had an edge or an agenda at the end of our interaction when they expected me to pay for what I just eaten. Of course, I'm joking. I mean, but this the way the Coyotes have done business for a number of years has been a joke. And, you know, under the current ownership in particular, there's been plenty of reports of the way they've been squeezing. They've been late on payments to employees, suppliers. I mean, it's a joke, and it's embarrassing to the National Hockey League. And, if I'm Gary Bettman in this case, maybe I just don't say much. Maybe I say we're looking to resolve everything and move forward. But to throw shade at the city of Glendale, which has basically bankrolled that team for so long to the detriment of many other things in their constituency, I think probably left a bad taste in their mouth. But anyways, who cares about the Coyotes? Not us. We care about the Bombers and that big Jets win. And we will be getting to a ton of Bomber content. And I think what we're going to do, Remo, tomorrow morning, the Illegal Curve guys will go on the air with their weekly show on YouTube, and people will be getting the latest on the Jets. They'll have lots to talk about coming off of these back-to-back games in Seattle and Vancouver. And I think what we might do for people that maybe missed some of the programs or maybe just want a bit of a crash course on the Grey Cup is put together a little WST special with a bunch of our Grey Cup content for a couple hours to get people ready for the big game. So, we'll tweet that out, but I think the plan is we'll put that together. We'll fire it up after Illegal Curve today. So as soon as Drew, Ezzy, and Dave finish up, we'll have that live for you with the premiere, and you can consume that if you've missed any of the shows or any of the Grey Cup interviews all week at any point before kickoff when the Bombers and Tiger Cats resume their, I guess, could we call this a rivalry? I guess they've only played once, but when their previous game was, of course, in the Grey Cup, their last game was the season opener, which had so much fanfare. Certainly, it may not be frequent rivals, but, they're going to be renewing acquaintances with so much on the line on Sunday. So it should be a great weekend. And now with the busy week that we've had on Winnipeg Sports Talk, figure it's another good chance to maybe package this up and give some good Grey Cup content for people if they haven't checked it out.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of cutting all that right now. So I just got to, arrange the clips, put them together, and we'll be good to go. But yeah, on our YouTube channel, tomorrow, but 11 a.m. I'll publish it for us. So that's exciting.
Patrolman Pete, the Grey Cup Super Show.
Yeah,
it's a great name for that, Pete.
I called it I think Mega Preview is what I made the YouTube thumbnail. I wrote Mega Preview. So
is there good SEO value on that on Mega? If you put Mega in something like, I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. But yeah, we do have a ton going on for a Grey Cup today. So Ed Tait in just a few minutes, Farhan Lalji as well, Dustin Nielson, and then Scott Billeck on the Jets and the big game tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. The Bombers are going to dominate this program. We will have Billeck join us a little later on. But Remo, let's get right to it. The Connor and Connor show last night in Seattle. The birthday boy, Kyle Connor, with a couple goals in the third period. But for my money, the man last night was Connor Hellebuyck, who got his first shutout of the year. He's played so well. It was almost a bit of a surprise. I go, wait a second, that's his first shutout of the season? But in fact, it was very important performance, and man, was he fired up after the game. You saw the big fist pump when the clock finally went to 0, and a pretty excited Jet goaltender speaking afterwards, asked about career shutout number 25. He said it was great. I can't wait for 26. He's looking forward, but it won't be Connor Hellebuyck in the net tonight. The long-awaited return of Eric Comrie, who I think, if I'm right, hasn't started since the last time this team was in Vancouver last month.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it was 25. It's, Hellebuyck's 25th shutout, made 25 saves. Kyle Connor's 25th birthday, and he scored 2 goals. Did you know he's played 3 times now on his birthday? He's scored every time. He's got 4 goals on 3 birthday games. That was the hot stat last night if you're watching on the broadcast. Well done for the Jets. I mean, the penalty kill, is the penalty kill fixed now? They went 5 for 5. I know it was against Seattle expansion Kraken.
Hey, we'll take it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, results-based business. The results were good. And I thought the penalty kill was a lot better. I thought it was more aggressive. And I thought, first and foremost, and Maurice talked about this going into the game, I mean, when they had the puck on their stick, they got it out of the zone. I mean, that was one of the most frustrating things, I think, for all parties involved in the Carolina game. And maybe it was partly with guys in different positions or playing on the wrong side. But you had some pucks that needed to be cleared out that simply weren't, got back onto the stick of the Carolina Hurricanes. And the next thing you know, more shots, more issues in front of the net, and at times more goals. Hey, shout out to everybody in chat. Everyone is fired up for the weekend. DQ Nick's here. Nick, what's up? It's our friends at DQ. You want to get ready for Grey Cup? You want to step up your Grey Cup party? Hit Nick and the gang up for some Blue Bomber special Grey Cup ice cream cakes. DQ Manitoba on Instagram. We'll plug that a little later on. But once we see Nick in the chat, we got to give him an official welcome, as well as everybody else. Oh, do you want to shout out to hockey guy Jeff, as well as Kevin, who won our Moose tickets from yesterday? I believe Kevin's going to the game tonight. Jeff's going with his gang tomorrow. A big weekend for the Moose. Holiday festivities tonight. Teddy bear toss tomorrow. Moosehockey.com for more information on all of that. But yes, Remis, back to the penalty kill. Certainly was better last night. I'll say one thing, though, that was a little disappointing. When your power play or when your penalty kill is struggling the way that it has been, I think it is incumbent on the Winnipeg Jets to be more disciplined with taking penalties. And listen, I hated Adam Lowry's penalty early on with getting the stick out. I mean, it's a no-win situation when you do that. Blake Wheeler as well. And Nikolai Ehlers, it's just a bit of a brain fart. I mean, I know he was battling that guy and he kind of got a hold on his stick. But I mean, if you basically stick your arm around a defenseman's stick for 10 seconds plus, you're going to get called each and every time. So I will say that I think a number of the penalty kills were unnecessary for the Winnipeg Jets. But the bottom line is you're going to be killing penalties at times. They did it 5 times last night. And they had a clean sheet led by the best penalty killer on the ice, the guy with the goalie mask and number 37 on his back.
Yeah, and I got to say, Mason Appleton was making his presence. He should have had a couple last night. Someone was asking about the high danger chances at 5-on-5. I mean, the Kraken actually outchanced the Jets 7-5 high danger. But I think the Jets, I think the game was in their control. I mean, they were only up 1-0 for most of it. Broke it open in the third period. Kyle Connor, I mean, Murat basically trashed their line yesterday. Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, but I mean, they have that finishing. Kyle Connor in close, Kyle Connor from far away. This guy can score anywhere, and what a performance it was for him. But I think maybe you'd like to see that line get a bit up there in terms of the Corsi for percentage. But even when they're not, I mean, you look at the Calgary game and this game, these guys are scoring the Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler line. So.
Well, they are. I'll say this about that line last night, and I think pretty much all the Jet lines, if you want to just worry about a single game Corsi numbers, they were all pretty good. But in the second period in particular, I thought that there was a bit of a wilt from the Jets, or they got into a bit of a lull. And there was a couple plays, and in particular one where, Josh Morrissey made it a little bit of an aggressive play on the blue line, leaving Nate Schmidt back as the lone defenseman. And I'm not sure whether Blake Wheeler just sort of took the foot off the gas or was unaware of where Yanni Gourde was. But an absolutely beautiful 2-on-1 opportunity to Gourde all alone in front of the net. And Connor Hellebuck bailed them out. And listen, if that play goes in and it's all of a sudden a tie game, this conversation could be very different today. Because, I mean, unfortunately, in a 60-minute game, we'll focus on the goals and some of the big plays. But, when you are losing your man, just your simple assignments, that's how the breakdowns happen, and that's how the puck ends up in the back of your net, even with a goaltender playing as good as Connor Hellebuck is right now. So the one thing I'd like to see from that line, I mean, when they've got the puck in the offensive zone, they're going to do what they do. And, Kyle Connor leading the way right now, Mark Scheifele, as well as Blake Wheeler, very competent in the offensive zone. But something that I think Murat has been talking about, and many of us over the course of the last couple of years, has been if those guys are going to be playing the big minutes as the number one line on the Winnipeg Jets team, they have to pay more attention to the details, the assignments, and what they need to do defensively. And listen, there's a couple spots in that second period where it wasn't good, and Connor Hellebuck bailed them out. Got them to the intermission, and then Kyle Connor took over in the third period. So overall, I'm not going to sit here and complain about a 3-0 shutout win. Very important game for the Jets to get 2 points. Maybe I likened it with Kenny last night. I filled in for Rennie on the Kenny and Rennie post-game show late night. You can check that out after WST or maybe before the game tonight if you missed it. But I likened the Tuesday game to the aftermath of a party. And it is somewhat ironic, Remis, because the Jets, of course, did have a big party after the Sunday win, celebrating Blake Wheeler's 1,000th game. But that game for the Jets was sort of a mess. And then you have created a big mess. Last night's game was the cleanup. I think they managed to, clean up most of what was wrong from the Tuesday night event. And then tonight is the opportunity to pull out the Febreze, the air freshener, and completely erase any stench or aftermath of what happened on Tuesday. And if the Jets can pull these 2 wins off, I think you look at 4 wins in the last 5 games, 3 days off before a big week at home beginning the Buffalo Sabres, and it's great. But if they don't win this game tonight, and it is a difficult spot, it is the second end of back-to-back nights. We know what the numbers will tell us about that. You got your backup goaltender in there. They're still kind of making up for lost ground. But I think the Jets probably feel like they owe the Vancouver Canucks one for the way they lost in regulation a few weeks ago in Eric Comrie's last start. Again, it was the penalty kill and some dumb penalties that really cost the Winnipeg Jets in that game. You'd really hope that the Jets can kind of continue doing what they did, especially in the third period. I thought that was their best period last night. Hopefully that can carry over because they're going up against a Vancouver team that's got a little bit of swag right now with Bruce Boudreau on the bench after the house cleaning earlier this week, and 2 straight wins to start Smiling Bruce's time on the Canuck bench.
Yeah, Eric Comrie in net. I know a lot of people worried about him to start the year. What is he, 3-2, 249 goals against, 913 save percentage. So I think it's going well for him to start the season. And yeah, I do think they want revenge against Vancouver. That was a tough one. They lost before. I think they'll be ready. I'm not here for any back-to-back excuses from the Jets. I think this is when you got to get.
It's a 30-minute flight. There's probably bus rides to hotels that take longer than the flight that they would have taken after last night's game.
So,
Mike McIntyre said that when they were taking the flight, they said, "Yeah, it's a 34-minute flight, and we'll get up to an altitude of 15,000 feet." And he's like, "Are we going in a helicopter?" I mean, usually in planes you're going, but I'm literally up and down. Keep the seatbelt on the entire way. A very short trip right now for the Winnipeg Jets, and right back at it. And again, then a weekend off, a day of practice on Monday, and the Buffalo Sabres coming into town on a Tuesday, 2 more days off, and then the Washington Capitals on Friday. So we'll leave it all out on the ice tonight. The guys will have time for rest. They'll have time for recuperation. They might even have time for a couple legitimate practices on home ice. But certainly the atmosphere around the team, I think, will be much better if they can pull off the double after a very important win last night in the first one of those back-to-backs.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, going forward, and as far as the NHL goes, the Seattle-Vancouver road swing. I'm going to have to make my way out. It was pretty cool to see, get a look at the Kraken Arena. I enjoyed on the broadcast. They talked about Dennis Bayak's history in Seattle with the Thunderbirds.
Oh, that was a great segment with Dennis.
I love those old pictures. Brendan Dillon, captain of the Thunderbirds. So, I mean, Seattle's a Murray that's got ties to hockey going back a long time, and they seem to be very excited in Seattle. Murat was saying yesterday. So, again, I'm kind of biased. My baseball team is the Mariners, sadly, but I'll have to go check out a Kraken game and do I think the Canucks Kraken road trip. That's like the new one. It used to be, you could go to like the New Yorks or the Florida, Tampa, Florida. But I think if you want to go on a calendar, maybe even if you can take a quick flight to Vegas or something like that. But it's very exciting.
And speaking of the West Coast, Reem, this is officially the final. I see Kenny's water bottle pointing this out, but this is the final game in the Pacific time zone for the Winnipeg Jets this regular season. So I think we can maybe successfully institute the time zone ban after today going forward. We heard Paul Maurice yesterday on this CJOB pregame show saying the West Coast games in the Pacific time zone far more challenging than the Eastern time zone. So, you know what? We'll see if they can persevere through the fact that they're 2 hours different from Winnipeg after that win last night. Get it done. And we will only be talking about Mountain time zone and Eastern time zone as opposed to good old home sweet home in the Central Division, in the Central time zone, which, by the way, for sports fans, I think we can all agree is the most elite time zone to live in if you are following North American sports.
Elite time zone. I do like the 9 p.m. starts. It's nice like when it's on a Saturday or something. And you can stay up late and watch the game. So I'm kind of saddened that we're not going to have any more late ones. I did enjoy watching you and Kenny and Rennie until like
that was a late shift. We love Ken, and Ken's so good to us. I wasn't about to say no to him, but I had some early tapings this morning, and I was drinking a whole bunch of Diet Pepsi just to stay up because I was actually quite tired. I made a point of not going out last night. I was very responsible. I watched the Vikings game, which of course was over at 29-0. I got to turn over to the hockey game, then saw the near meltdown by Minnesota via Twitter, and watched the hockey game and got at it. But we will talk a little bit more on the Jets coming up, I'd say about an hour from now. But over the course of this next hour, we're going to dive in headfirst to the upcoming Grey Cup. We hope to have Ed Tait join us in just a few minutes. But I want to give a big shout out to our newest sponsor, F Apparel, the kings of custom suits and more for men. Winnipeg owned at 190 Smith Street downtown. Now, I think you all know, we haven't been wearing suits very much through the course of the pandemic, but good news that 2022, we should be getting more back to normal, and every guy needs a suit that both fits and looks great, and F Apparel can get one for you with their incredible full line of custom clothing starting at just $400. They're also the top choice in Winnipeg for wedding and grad suits. If you're planning for that for the upcoming year, give them a buzz. And if you have a big event you need to look great, F is there for you. And wedding parties get 15% off when the group buys their suits from us. Special promo online. Gift cards, 15% off up until Christmas at fapparel.ca. So, get on that. A $200 gift card ends up being $170. Great deal, great people, and an incredible product over at F Apparel. Just before the show, I did pop into Vita Health to pick up a few things. Man, that grab-and-go market is amazing. The salads are so good, and the options of sandwiches and wraps from a few of the top kitchens in town. Just amazing selections. But there's much more than just a great grab-and-go deli. It's the best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, supplements, and beauty products, all at great prices with an amazing staff that will help you get the right products for you. Of course, Vita Health, 85 years empowering people to lead healthy lives here in Winnipeg. Family-owned since 1936. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge. Check them out online at myvita.ca. And while we're eating right and filling our bodies with all the good stuff in Vita Health, you can't start it off without getting your water in. And when it comes to water and water services in Winnipeg, the Culligan people have been the go-to folks for 65 years. Everything when it comes to it. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, and drinking water systems, not to mention citywide delivery services. And with all the holiday hosting going on right now, a Culligan water softener will sure help cut down on those hard water stains for sparkling clean sinks, tubs, showers, not to mention glasses and dishes for a holiday sparkle even your mother-in-law will love. Special for the month of December, enjoy Culligan water for $9.99 for the first 3 months, or you can give the gift of Culligan water for $9.99 for the first 3 months. Give them a call, 694-5180, or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. It's the Culligan Man over at 1200 Sargent Avenue, and telling your friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, we'll have a little more on the Jets later on in the program, and of course, we will have a big marble race today to finish it up, but it's all about the Grey Cup today here in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba. And we've had a pretty good run talking to Ed Tait heading into games on Friday, so I certainly didn't want to screw it up. And Eddie has been so kind to join us from Hamilton right now, where the Bombers are on the field practicing. Edward, thanks so much for making the time for us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm great, Huss. We just got here. I'm at McMaster University, staring at the out from an empty press box as the Bombers are just about to start practice. So we were scrambling to get over here. The Grey Cup week's so weird for timing and everything. A bunch of players were doing media at Tim Hortons, but because the team is practicing at McMaster, we had to hustle over here for this. So I'm glad to join you. Right, we got a good run going here.
We certainly do, and hopefully that will continue on the weekend. Hey, listen, before we get to, the game itself, tell it what are the last couple days been like? I mean, we'll talk about the team itself, but I mean, you've been to many of these events. We knew this would be scaled down a little bit. The stadium won't be as big as normal, but does it feel like Grey Cup week?
Well, a couple things that I'm not going to be very good to answer that, Huss. First of all, the team staying in Burlington, which seems like a different time zone away sometimes with the amount of traffic we've had to sit through. And I'm still officially in Tier 1, which means we're not supposed to be out and about gallivanting around too much. So I wish I could give you a sense of the Grey Cup spirit or vibe, but we haven't been downtown Hamilton other than to come downtown for the media and stuff. But one thing I'll say is it seems a little bit muted. You don't see banners everywhere. And usually by the Thursday of Grey Cup, you see crowds and crowds of other fans walking around, going from party to party in their jerseys. We haven't seen a whole lot of that, although I haven't been outside at night here yet. We're Burlington seems like a long way from here, but that's the way it should be, whatever it takes to play this Grey Cup after missing one, right?
Well, exactly. And of course, for the Blue Bombers, it's all business. They'll have plenty of time to, in your words, gallivant, hopefully with another ring on their finger coming up next week. Fill us in on the last couple of days for the team. I mean, we know they've been practicing at McMaster, but it is Grey Cup week, so a little different. There's been a lot of media. Fill us in on sort of what the team's been up to since they got to Hamilton in preparation for the TiCats.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different because it's a home Grey Cup for the Tiger Cats, right? And a lot of people have been saying, well, why are the Bombers not practicing on Tim Hortons Field since you're going to play there? Well, look, it's Grey Cup week. And when you're playing in someone's backyard, they're worried about prying eyes. That's gamesmanship, right? If someone was playing the Bombers in the Grey Cup and it was at IG Field, we'd be pretty naive to think that there wasn't somebody somewhere spying or watching the practice, right? So that's why they're out here practicing at McMaster. Everything about, players are so big on routine, Huss, as you know. Everything about it is different at this because it's a longer road trip. It's, all the extra media attention, all the other, requirements for teams and coaches and extra interviews they have to do, sit downs with the rights holders. It's way, way different than the normal. So that's why I think it's important for teams that have been here before, both Winnipeg and Hamilton, because they've lived through this once before now. Most of the players, there's not a lot of rookies on either team. So I'll tell you what, though, yesterday was fun. They have a media day similar to a scaled down version of what they do in the NFL, where a player has a booth and everybody can go talk to them. But they split it up into two groups, and they had us in this kind of holding area, and they had the tabletop hockey game. They had the beanbag toss thing, and guys are just chilling. This is a very relaxed team. They had the music going. Guys are dancing on the elevator. I've never seen a team this cool. I'm not going to say relaxed. They're just enjoying the moment, and it's kind of interesting to see.
How much do you think that has to do with winning in 2019? I mean, the situation's very different going into this game than it was carrying a 29-year anvil on their back going into that game. I mean, you were there with both. I mean, how would you characterize the difference in the attitude? I don't want to say focus, because I imagine their focus is still all about winning a football game, but just the attitude and maybe the comfort of the situation this year as opposed to 2 years ago in Calgary.
That's an excellent point. I think the right word is comfort, because not everybody had lived that 29-year drought, or a lot of players had no concept of it other than to have media guys bringing it up occasionally. But it's not there anymore. It's not there for guys. The pressure isn't there on the coaching staff. I mean, they want to win, of course, but that was a whole extra layer of pressure and expectation and the fear of letting people down again and having the drought extend into 3 decades would have been, nightmarish for them. So they don't have that anymore. But I've been saying this all year long with you, Huss, about this team. I can't quite describe it in a sentence, but there's just something about them, and it's not cockiness. It's a confidence, and they expect to win, and their preparation, everything around it might look different this week because of the the difference in the protocols and the differences in the routine. But this team just says, okay, if we got to go there to do that interview, fine. If we got to go over there and we have to play tabletop hockey for an hour before it's my turn to speak to media, let's roll with it. And that's one thing that they've done very, very well. And I think that is a bit of a byproduct of having been there before in 2019.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all. Tell us about the media day. Who were the big stars of the show? I saw Willie stunting at his booth. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of people looking to talk to Mr. Jefferson. I mean, how did it go? And it did seem, at least from what I saw via social media and some of the other media reports, that the Bombers were having a lot of fun doing it and are embracing their role as the defending champs and a team that a lot of people are expecting to go out and do it again on Sunday.
I think Willie was one of the stars. I mean, he had the shades going through the whole session, right? And, you get the weird questions and stuff. Someone was telling me today there were a couple of guys from California that were up here. I don't know what outlet they were from or whatever, but they were talking to Willie. And one of the guys, this is, again, similar to the Super Bowl, you get the weird questions on a day like this. One of the guys, I'm just relaying the story. I wasn't there for this part. So one of the guys, I guess, is a bit bigger. And he asked Willie, who do you think would win in a fight between you and me? Which is a great question, right? And so I guess, Darren Cameron, the media guy, was telling me that he was just ready to jump in to end this. And I guess Willie didn't miss a beat. And he said, very quietly but calmly, I'd kick your ass. So he was one of the stars. It was just a lot of fun. The minute we got in there, they had all this food for guys in this holding area. And in the back of the room, I see that old tabletop hockey, the plastic roof thing on it. And that's right in my wheelhouse. I played the first game and I won. And then the second game, I beat somebody again. They had never played before. And somebody said, man, you're gifted at this. And I said, look, I'm old. I didn't have video games when I grew up. I just had that stupid Pong thing. This was my video game. I spent hours on this thing. You know what? I would have written a whole story about how good I was on that, but I'm not that vain.
Ed, you know what? It's funny you bring that up. Remis and I were down at Little Brown Jug for the 5th anniversary last week, and I couldn't help but notice they've got a Czechs bubble hockey game out there. So when you get back and you've got a little bit of time on your hands, we'll go down there. We'll have a 1919. And we will get it on. I want a shot at the bell to the Bomber office.
Okay, I'm in. Sign me up, Huss. I'm into that.
Eddie Tait from BlueBombers.com with us in Hamilton as the Bombers get ready for practice. What can you tell us about the preparations over the last couple days? It seems like everything under Mike O'Shea has been business as usual. I mean, practice. Has there been anything different about the actual preparation practice-wise on the field than anything you've seen for every game week this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, again, because this team rolls with the punches so well, I haven't seen anything different. One thing I'm noticing today, it's quite a bit warmer here in Hamilton today. So the first couple practices here, the field was covered in snow, and now it's balmy. I can see green grass on the campus here. There's still some leaves on the trees. And so that's one difference. The guys, when we pulled up here, where Rashid Bailey was beaking a little bit at Nick Taylor saying, oh, the field's clear. Watch out, the offense is going to be all over the defense today at practice. So again, it's the kind of stuff maybe it's because I'm on the inside a little bit now, just traveling with the team all the time. You can get a better picture of the vibe sometimes other than just through a media availability. And this team is very, very relaxed. And, maybe things will tighten up a bit tomorrow, the day before the game. But this is the last full practice of this season for the Bombers and for the Tiger Cats. And if you were to ask me to take a temperature, and I would be much more worried if this team was tight and kind of snapping at each other and surly. It's the exact opposite, and I think that's a good sign.
Well, for sure, and to be honest, I think it's earned. I mean, they should be confident, and they should feel confident in each other. And a big part of that comes back to just what you said. I mean, going at it against each other all season long. I mean, I think the offense has made the defense better, and the Winnipeg Blue Bomber defense in practice has certainly made the Bomber offense better. Take us behind the scenes. I mean, a lot of fans don't get a chance to see practice, and not necessarily today in the final practice, but overall, how would you describe the sort of internal rivalries between the offense and the defense when they do go up against each other in whatever drills they're doing over the course of a week?
Oh, so okay, a practice it's a couple hours long, right? So there's a certain period where they just kind of run around a little bit, and then there's individual period where they'll practice, the running backs are all together, the D-line is all together, and they're still working on their craft every day, whether it's a swim move for a defensive end or a running back running around bags to get used to the cuts. They do all that kind of stuff. They're kind of going through that right now. Then they kind of get a little bit more specific, and we'll do a session like inside run where they, Andrew Harris or Johnny Augustine or Brady Oliveras to run between the tackles, certain plays. And then at the end of practice, I'll tell you what, this is when it gets fun. They do 12 on 12, basically offense, number one offense versus number one defense. And there's been times this year where the action in that has been better than some of the CFL games I've seen this year, because it has been, it's best on best. And there's a lot of best guys out there, right? There's a lot of all-stars on this team. And that is really fun, but it hones you, right? It hardens you offensively and defensively going against those guys all the time. Now, there's no tackling, right? You're not going to see Willie Jefferson go outside a tackle and pull Zach Collaros to the ground like he would if it was Dane Evans on Sunday. But it's fun. It's really competitive. It comes from the boss. It's not unique to the Bombers, but it is part of what makes them sharp. And it's been from day one of training camp, they've done that. And it's near the end of practice. It's almost a highlight of the practice session when it's 1 versus 1.
Eddie, as far as health goes, is it pretty much all hands on deck? I mean, any worries about guys being able to go for Sunday?
Yeah, I'm just looking out here now. I'm not sure if Andrew Harris is practicing, so that's a good sign. And Mike Jones was missing. He skipped out yesterday. I'm just seeing if I can see him. I'm not sure yet, Huss, if he's practicing yet or not today. So kind of looking behind a couple of different barriers here. But this is as healthy as you can be, right? I mean, this was the big concern when they had those 3 games at the end of the regular season about whether you'd have all hands on deck and resting people, the old rest versus rust debate. But for them to be here at this point and have everybody good to go, we are also tested for the last time yesterday. So, I think everybody's good to go. And that's a great sign based on this whole year has been so bizarre in that regard. To get to this point now, to be this close to the Grey Cup and not have had anybody miss any games because of COVID is pretty remarkable.
The matchup, I think, is exactly what people wanted to see. The TiCats getting the opportunity to play at home. And, of course, Zach Collaros and Dane Evans going back at it again. And the TiCats quarterback situation is very interesting. And maybe we'll touch on that in a second. But Zach Collaros, the last time he was in the Grey Cup for the Bombers, had played, 3 games for Winnipeg before starting that game? Now he's the quarterback of a team. He started the entire season, that finished first, that won last week. But it is interesting. He's going back to a spot where he had some of his greatest success in the Canadian Football League. What's the week been like for Zach, and how is he feeling, and how has he, kind of been enjoying being back in the Hammer, knowing that he's on the verge of another incredible accomplishment for he and his team?
This is an interesting site for him because him and his wife Nicole live not too far from here. Actually, they still have a home here, and you're right. This is where Zach had some of his greatest moments, but also some of his worst. They were 0-8 one year, and they yanked the starting quarterback chores from him, and he ended up getting traded from Hamilton to Saskatchewan. I'm writing a story on Zach for today/tonight because the player awards are tonight, and he's the front runner for the most outstanding player award as far as I'm concerned. He's been the same all week. Again, very calm, very very collected. And yet, when you talk to some of the players, because you have more chance to do more interviews, I keep asking them, well, we hear about you guys talk about him all the time being fiery and being, super competitive. And but we don't see that. When he's doing an interview, he's, the most laid back and reserved guy ever. What is he like in the huddle? And Kenny Lawler was telling me that there's times when he walks into the huddle and he's joking around, which, can relax guys. But there's other times he'll come into the huddle and he'll be like, hey, listen up. we're going to get ready right now to kick their ass, or we're going to put the screws of them right now. And the guys just like kind of everybody leans in and they're ready to go. And it's the side of him that we don't get to see. I think deep down, Zach, because he is so competitive, he wants to stick it to the TiCats one more time, because this is a team that traded him. I think when you sign somewhere or you have some success somewhere, you think, oh, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my career, right? But it's not that way with him. And I think he's got a little bit extra fire in that belly for Sunday.
Ed Tait with us from BlueBombers.com from Hamilton. Bombers on the field right now practicing, getting ready for Grey Cup 108 Sunday afternoon. Eddie, Bomber fans, if you haven't already gone to BlueBombers.com and read Ed's long read on Andrew Harris, Nick Dembski, and Brady Oliveira, you definitely should get over and do that. I mean, the Oak Park trio, Remis has got it up on the screen right there. I've talked a lot about Mike O'Shea this week, and I know he's not thinking about this, but if Mike O'Shea is able to win another Grey Cup, where that puts him in the pantheon of Blue Bomber coaches. But Ed, I mean, these three young men, and particularly Andrew Harris, who's destined for the Hall of Fame, and Nick Dembski, who's already had a wonderful career. These young men have the opportunity to go down, to elevate their status amongst Winnipeg football legends even further. Really love the piece. Maybe talk a little bit about that. But, what would a Grey Cup win mean for a player like Andrew Harris and Dembski and even Oliveira, who hasn't been around for a very long time, but has been a part of some of the greatest successes we've seen here in decades?
Yeah, first of all, the fact that there's three guys from one high school is what makes the story so unique. And remember in 2019, as Chris Cuthbert's calling the game, Glenn Suter's on the color, they must have mentioned Oak Park High School a half dozen times in this game, that it was remarkable that two guys from the same high school were starting on offense for the Grey Cup champion Winnipeg Blue Bombers, their hometown team. Now there's a third guy in Brady Oliveira who was injured in 2019. He's suiting up on Sunday. So we went back and did a little bit of research, and some people that helped me, including a guy named, his Twitter handle is @StatsJunkie. If you're a CFL fan, you got to check him out. He did some digging and found out that the last time the Bombers had three guys from the same high school on their team was 1946, and there were four guys from Kelvin High School on the Bombers. And if you remember back then, you wouldn't remember. I had to research it. I'm not that old. I wasn't alive then. But back then, after World War II, the CFL was a lot different, right? You had a lot of local guys just filling out the roster. You might have had one or two, American guys on your team. So it wouldn't have been that unusual to have four guys from the same high school. But here we are all these years later, with free agency, with the draft, with just the way the game is, to have three guys from one high school on the same team is remarkable. And so as to what it would mean, Andrew and Nick got to live it in 2019. So did Brady, but he wasn't dressed. And those guys talk about this all the time. They are diehard Winnipeggers, and they wanted to do this. Nick was asked about it earlier in the week, about maybe becoming the first Bomber team to win consecutive championships since 1961-62. And he started to answer the question, and then he caught himself and said, now maybe better not go there. Ask me again on Sunday night. But he's been thinking about it. And I know Andrew has too, and I know Brady has. And just to kind of tease my own story here, that you got, thanks for putting that up there, Remo, for doing that. I already had the story and my idea in my head, and I had done a lot of the interviews, and I went over to where Willie Jefferson was doing interviews, and he was just finishing up with Paul Friesen, and Paul was asking him about two guys from Texas, him and Jackson Jeffcoat, who trained together, and kind of their story about how two guys from Texas end up in Winnipeg. And when Paul left, when he was done his interview, I said to Willie, that's pretty cool, two guys from Texas, but how about three guys from the same high school? And it was Willie that came up with, that's the King, the Duke, and the Prince of Winnipeg right there. Andrew Harris is the King, Nick Dembski's the Prince, and Brady Oliveira is the Duke. So I took that to Andrew and Nick. I'd already talked to Brady, and they said, yeah, Sounds pretty good. We'll live with that.
It's up at bluebombers.com right now. A long read. Definitely must read before we get to the big game on Sunday. Ed Tait is with us. Eddie, let's focus in on what's going to happen on Sunday. I still look at the foundation of this football team, and that is the big guys up front on the offensive line. We saw it in spades keeping this team in. And of course, the defense when, there were some uncharacteristic mistakes that I think nobody expects to happen again, certainly in the quantity that they did against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. But I mean, when you look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I mean, what are the most important things that this team needs to do to win the game? And when you look at Hamilton, I mean, what are the things from a defensive standpoint or even special teams that they need to be wary of before kickoff on Sunday afternoon?
I think Winnipeg's, as much like first half last week, just was so off script, right? When you turn the ball over 5 times, that the fact that they won speaks an awful lot to their resilience, which we've all been talking about all week. But the way they bounced back in that game was important to me, and it was just sticking to what they do, right? They weren't panicking. They weren't, you couldn't in that win, but you weren't, trying to go downfield over and over again. They said, okay, wait a minute. What do we do here? What are we good at? We pound the ball. We own the line of scrimmage, and they did with Andrew Harris. And they owned the line of scrimmage on the other side of the ball with the way Willie and all that front, and Willie and Jackson, everybody got after Cody Fajardo last week. So I think it's the same script that unfolded in 2019 is what you do again. You try to pound the football. Hamilton's really good against the run, but I think you stick with it. You take your shots when you can. And then on defense, you've got to get after Dane Evans. He went 16 for 16 in relief in that Eastern final. I mean, that's pretty damn good when the ball doesn't ever hit the ground if you're a quarterback. So I'm hoping that he's having nightmares the night before the game based on his 2019 flashbacks because, look, he's a real good player. And if you let him get going, he can get in that kind of a rhythm. So I think the Bombers will have some stuff dialed up for him to get into his face early and just to make him uncomfortable because that's going to be really key. So that's the line of scrimmage. You mentioned special teams. Hamilton's kicking game has been all over the map, which sounds familiar because it's been like that in Winnipeg until Sergio Castillo came. They do have Brandon Banks, and everybody knows how dangerous he is. So, if it is a field position game, that little side battle between Banks and Janarian Grant, who can set their team up better, will be something to really keep an eye on.
Eddie, thanks so much. I know how busy you and everyone has been. We really appreciate you joining us on Friday, but we had to keep it going. We've got a very good record doing this year. And as I said, definitely an invite next week to wrap the season and a few 1919s on me and a Czechs bubble hockey matchup when you guys come back after Hamilton. We'll look forward to it. Enjoy the week. Best of luck to the Bombers. Thanks so much for doing this, pal.
Appreciate you having me on as always, Huss. See ya.
Right. At Ed Tait WFC, and make a point to get into bluebombers.com and check out that great long read on the King, the Prince, and the Duke of Peg City as anointed by one Willie Jefferson. Great to have Ed on the program. Much more on the Grey Cup coming up. We'll check in with Farhan, Lalji, and Dustin Nielson as well from Hamilton, all before we get back to the Jets and tee up tonight's game against the Vancouver Canucks with Scott Billeck, and of course a big marble race to finish up the week before Grey Cup Sunday. A big thank you to our friends over at Manitoba Battery. There wasn't quite a Manitoba Battery-like start for the Bombers last week, but man, did they get it going in the West Final when they needed it with that big win. But we hope it will be a Manitoba Battery-like start coming up on Sunday. Perfect, powerful, and full throttle right from the get-go. Of course, Manitoba Battery can power anything. Batteries for literally anything you need a battery for. But most importantly, right now, with it being winter, automotive batteries are in demand. And Manitoba Battery allows you to shop local and get the best price in town on a battery for your car. $89.50 with Core Exchange down at the shop at 1026 Logan Avenue. And they've also got an incredible deal for delivery citywide at just $104.95. Again, with a $15 return for the original core. There's lots going on right now, on the trails. We're getting sledding season back. A lot of people getting the sleds out, and Manitoba Battery's got batteries for all types of sleds, whatever you need, usually in about the $65 to $75 range. So it is all there right now at Manitoba Battery. Don't wait till it's minus 30 and you're calling Donnie and the Godfather and the guy's going, help me out, I need it. Get proactive, do it before you need it. A Manitoba Battery with the best price in town. Don't waste your money and your time sitting in that Costco parking lot or any of the big box stores. Shop local and do it over at Manitoba Battery on Logan Avenue. With kickoff on Sunday, the one thing you might need to do is upgrade your blue in the collection. And of course, Royal Sports is the place to do that. An incredible amount of Blue Bomber gear for all shapes and sizes. And they'll have it ready and it'll probably be flying off the shelves tomorrow as well. Check out their Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina all week long. They've been popping out, as you can see on the screen right now, number of different hats, T-shirts, hoodies, jackets, repping the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the 2019 Grey Cup champs. And then in a few weeks, fingers crossed, if things go well on Sunday, a whole new line of championship gear for the 2021 championship team. Of course, they're the hockey superstore. They've got snowboard gear. And, you know, whether you're active, whether you're just a big sports fan, you can pretty much knock off all of the holiday shopping in one visit to Royal Sports, along with King's Skate, Snow, and Surf over at 750 Pembina Highway. Before the holidays, we'll have to get Greg and Gerald on to do a little Royal Sports holiday special with some great gift ideas for the sports fan in the family. But for the weekend, it's all about the Grey Cup. Get on down the Royal Sports 750 Pembina Highway. And our friends at Knott Autocorp, very jealous. I think Trev's out there with the gang. Huge Bomber supporters over at Knott Autocorp. And of course, when it comes to getting vehicles in town, you see Milt Stiegel running through the incredible car lab and Knott Autocorp showroom over at Waverly and McGillivray. Milt's worked with Trevor and the gang there for a long time. But why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the Knott team? And why not get in the lab if you've got decaling, detailing, or even a wrap needed for your vehicle? Waverly and McGillivray is where it all happens. Knott Autocorp, the Winnipeg Car Lab. Find out more online at knott.ca. All right, coming up in just a couple minutes, we're going to hook up with Farhan Lalji of TSN. Interested to get Farhan's takes on what we heard from Randy Ambrosie today with the State of the League address. And we also saw the unveiling of the Grey Cup fan base. And the Grey Cup fan base was something that started at the beginning of the pandemic, which was ostensibly to try to get some money to keep the league alive. And I know there was a number of people in Winnipeg that stepped up and desperately trying to support this league when it was, when it was in peril. And I'm not sure we're entirely out of that, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'll give the Canadian Football League a lot of credit. Saw the unveiling this morning. And it is a really, really impressive piece. And I think first and foremost, I think we've got to give a big shout out to every fan that stepped up and supported the league with something that really was not going to come to them individually, but knowing it was for a great cause. But I thought the CFL did a great job of that. So that was debuted today. And we also heard about the league going forward. So let's check in with our good friend Farhan Lalji, who joined us from Hamilton, just 2 days out from the Grey Cup. Farhan, thanks so much for doing this. How are things in the Hammer?
Huss, always happy to talk to you, my friend. And there's a good buzz, considering it's a COVID Grey Cup, for lack of a better description, in terms of not being a full festival and every team parties and so on and so forth. There's still a pretty good buzz. I think it's kind of heating up. I like the fact that everything's kind of central here, right? Like in terms of where the league events, everything is kind of connected to the convention center, and we're right near there. The FRC is too far away from us. That's the only downside to this week.
Well, I'm sure you guys will be able to find a way to the FRC suite late night and go forward. I just want to quickly ask you before I get to the game about the commissioner's address today, Randy Ambrosie. What were the big hot and button topics for Ambrosie coming through? I mean, such a tumultuous period for everyone, but especially the Canadian Football League. Was it more optimism that we've got to this point and have such a great Grey Cup matchup, or was it more about some of the trials and tribulations that the league has gone through over the past 2 years?
Well, definitely the latter. I don't even know if he was asked a question about the game itself. So, I think that, he was asked certainly about the state of the league, the finances, and how much trouble they're in still and how much work there is to be done. And, I asked them about the game. I think the quality of the game has been really, really poor. And I don't think it's just because of COVID. I think it was trending in this direction and then a big drop off here. And, so there was a lot of those types of things. Obviously, the situation around the Argos and TiCats, John Murphy and things of that nature. So there's a lot there that he had to go through. And, and there's some optimism for sure because you've got this new partner with Genius Sports, and their involvement in a number of other leagues. And I've never seen so much optimism around a new initiative in a decade. Like that, I can't even remember the last time I felt this, and it was genuine talking to other people around the league after the fact that they really believe this is going to be a game changer. And one of the reasons for that is that it's this company is invested, right? Like they've got an equity piece in this project. So they don't own any individual teams, but there is financial incentive for this company to also make things work. And they can provide things to the league in terms of data and information and fan engagement that they otherwise simply never could have done. Right. And I mean, I think the example that was given to me that, if you want to fix a car, you can either try to do it with like a massive chest of tools, right? Like, one of those big ones that has like, 10 different drawers and, or you can try to do it with, a pair of pliers and a wrench, right? And that's the difference. And they've been given tools and resources to really try to push this in a direction by a group that's now invested to help them get there. That coupled with revenue sharing, for the first time in quite some time, something that everybody believed was really, really needed by this league. I think all of that has left them with a sense of optimism that, hey, things aren't perfect, but we now are in a place where we can get there based on some of the support they're going to get from Genius, but also a little more alignment from the governors in terms of things like revenue sharing and the understanding that we're either going to punch our way out of this together or we're going to not punch our way out of it at all.
Farhan, were the letters XFL mentioned at all in this presser today?
Yeah, they were asked about it, but I just think it's so in the rearview mirror, right? There wasn't necessarily a need to get into it too deeply, but yeah, they were asked about the context and some things around that. But ultimately, like it's been more than 6 months since I think all of that went away. So I don't know that was nearly as pressing as anything else. But I will tell you this, and Naylor and I are going to talk about this later on SportsCenter. Understand that when they talked about the XFL, what left everybody aghast, right? Like the traditionalists in places like Winnipeg and Edmonton, what left them aghast was the thought of changing rules to accommodate the XFL. Well, guess what? Changing rules is going to be on the table, with or without the XFL. It's going to be on the table because when you look at what this league has looked like this year from a product standpoint, they better fix this. Right? Like you can't continue to trend the way they've trended offensively since 2017. And everything needs to be on the table. People are going to say they should never consider 4 downs. Guess what? They're going to consider 4 downs. They're going to consider any possible thing that they believe can add offense to this game. And I'm not saying that can, right? And I'm not saying that's done. Like don't misunderstand me. All I'm going to say is there's no sacred cows. And I think everything is going to be considered in terms of how to fix the offensive issues the Steel League has dealt with in the last couple of seasons. And everyone's got their theories, right? But, they're going to be really measured about it and have a lot of qualified people in the room and look at every option.
Farhan, I mean, you're the best guy to talk about this considering your extensive coaching background. But I mean, what's your theory on why the league, especially offensively, outside of a few games and a few teams, was so impotent this year?
Well, so there's 2 questions. One are how do you fix it, right? Which is what the league is looking at. And the other is what were the problems? So for me, I think a lot of what's caused this, I think it started 4 years ago when you eliminated contact in practice. And I know the PAs are going to hate me saying this, but O-linemen will tell you that they are missing out in their ability to prepare by not having some practice. So you get these Canadian college offensive linemen that come into the league and now they're never allowed to hit and actually properly develop outside of a couple of contact days in training camp, right? So it starts there. So it brings the quality of your offensive linemen down significantly, or at least delays their development time. And these guys got to get rolled in there and play, in front of quarterbacks. We haven't necessarily found that next wave of quarterbacks, right? I mean, it looked like guys like Evans and Fajardo and Vernon Adams and Nick Arbuckle were all going to be that next wave. And all of them kind of took a bit of a step back in 2019, right? So I think there's a lot of different reasons for why it's gone this way. The amount of ratio that's been loaded up on the defensive side of the ball as far as heavy Americans. There's different reasons for it in terms of why it's trended that way. And they've got to explore every possibility to adjust, right?
Hey, Farhan, Lalji with us here from TSN on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, getting ready for the Grey Cup on Sunday. Farhan, just before I ask you about the game, you and Naylor, I know, reported on this. Orlando Steinhauer potentially candidate for a pretty nice DC gig at the University of Washington. What can you tell us about Steinhauer's future? And maybe on a bigger question, how much change could we see with this Tiger Cats team going into next year, depending on what happens on Sunday?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think anything is done, and I don't want to characterize it that way, but there's a lot of reports coming out of the University of Washington area from people I know there that are tying Orlando to the job just because of his relationship with Kalen DeBoer, the new head coach at Washington. The two men were coordinators in 2017 at Fresno. It was a really good relationship, but there hasn't been discussions between the two parties on this particular job, like nothing in any kind of detail. There's been no negotiations. There's been no offer made or anything like that. But, my sense of it is that Kalen DeBoer is waiting until the Grey Cup is over out of respect to Orlando. And I think that he's starting to place people on his staff as position coaches, including on the defensive side of the ball. And it's rare that happens without knowing who your coordinator is going to be, right? Because you're going to give the coordinator some level of input, and you've got to tell those people that are coaching those positions who they're going to be working for so that they can feel comfortable about it. So my sense of it is, and again, I want to be clear here, no job offer has been made, no negotiations have taken place, right? I mean, my understanding is that the two sides exchanged congratulatory texts when Kalen DeBoer got the job at Washington and when the TiCats made it to the Grey Cup, right? I don't think there's been more than that, but there has been, a meaningful friendship and dialogue the two men have had over the last 4 years since they worked together. So my sense of it is that on Monday, I think there's going to be some conversations. And if there is a desire, I'm going to say this properly, if there is a desire on the part of the University of Washington to name Orlando Steinhauer their defensive coordinator, I believe that will happen. Now, Washington could name a D coordinator in the next 48 hours, right? And it could be somebody else. But I'm telling you, if it goes to Monday and they haven't picked that guy and there's a desire to bring in Orlando Steinhauer, I think the Hamilton TiCats will be looking for a new head coach.
Farhan, let's get to the game. Bombers are a 3-point favorite right now at most books. They've been the best team all year long. They handled Hamilton in the first game of the season, but it has been a long, long time since these two teams met. And of course, we all remember what happened in the Grey Cup in 2019. What do you make of the matchup? And what is the path to victory for both teams in your mind?
Well, the path to victory for both teams, here's where I'm having a tough time with it, right? Number one, I think last week got the attention of the Riders, of the Bombers, I should say, right? The fact that they stumbled the way they did, we'll make sure they understand this is not going to be easy, right? So that's number one. Number two, as I look at the matchups around here, I really feel that Winnipeg's got the best O-line and D-line in the league, and I'm sure I'm not in the minority of opinion to think that. And I felt that Hamilton, their D-line could hold up and match up against Winnipeg's O-line. That took a bit of a hit today with Ted Laurent's news, right? That he had an emergency appendectomy and is not going to play in the game. But I still think Jagarrett Davis is as good as Jackson Jeffcoat and Willie Jefferson. And I think the way they play defensively, I think they can hold up, right? I mean, that's not to say they're going to shut Winnipeg down. I didn't say that, but I don't think they're going to get just completely worked over. But the other side of the ball, I just do not see a way for Hamilton, for that offensive line, to be able to function effectively against Winnipeg's defensive line. I just think they're too good, they're too deep, and I don't see... as much as I think Dane Evans looked great last week, and as much as he's going to be motivated to make up for what happened last year, I think he's going to be running for his life, right? And the best part about Winnipeg is they don't have to blitz to get pressure because those guys are so good, so they can still play coverage behind it, right? And, you still don't have a Braylon Addison type guy. I'm a big fan of Don Jackson. Can he get anything going against that defensive front? I don't know. So I think that's the big matchup I can't get past, is Winnipeg's D-line versus Hamilton's offensive line.
Farhan, just before we go, Jets are in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. Been a pretty wild week in Canuckland. Bruce Boudreau's in. They've got a couple wins going forward. Now Jim Rutherford's apparently going to be the president of hockey operations. How much more fun is it this week to talk about the Canucks than how miserable it was the last little bit? And what do you think about all the turnover that's happened recently with the Canucks?
Well, probably much needed, right? I mean, I think the GM lasted probably 2 years longer than he should have, right? I think you can make the case that he was always out of his depth, and this was never going to go well. And the signs were there long ago when he was making some really, really bad decisions on contracts, and it should have happened years ago. As far as Travis Green is concerned, I think Travis is a very good coach. I think he's going to have another life as a head coach in this league, and I think he's going to have a lot of success. While I believe that, I also think a change was needed. And both things can be true, right? In that the team wasn't playing for him anymore. The best players weren't playing for him anymore. Now, for me, I generally am critical of players when it comes to that, and I am in this case. I think it's unfortunate that you get a bunch of these young guys and they're not necessarily as accountable as they need to be, and all of a sudden they can have bad body language and a guy loses his job, right? Because he did get things out of these players before, and he did break them into the league when none of them spent any time in the minors, right? Like they all got fast-tracked into the league, and he had to absorb them into the lineup. But ultimately, for whatever reason, and you and I know this, right, that it's easier to change the coach, and he wasn't reaching the players at that point, and he himself knew they couldn't continue to lose. So Boudreau has been kind of the anti-Travis in terms of just lightening the mood in the room, and everything's been, fun and all that. But, but when coaching changes happen, you're always going to get a bit of a bump, and that's what this is right now. So we'll see, because the roster is still flawed. So can he get more out of him in the short term? Sure, I absolutely expect that. Can he get more out of them in the long term? We'll see. But they're a lot more fun to watch, and I just think that in the marketplace collectively, there's just been a bit of an exhale, because everybody's been waiting for something to happen. Players, fans, media alike, everybody's been waiting, and now it's happened, so they can just kind of move on with what's next, and that matters.
Yeah, well, the fans went from chanting "Fire Benning" every game to chanting "Bruce, there it is" to the tag team win. So it sounds like they're having a lot more fun. I said, speaking of fun, I mean, from a media perspective, I'm sure everyone's excited to have Bruce around.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy to talk to. And I mean, with Travis, he tended to get somewhat dismissive, right, in press conference settings. But if you knew him away from that setting, he was actually a really good guy. So those things didn't bother me. But just in terms of that ability to just kind of just chuckle at yourself and be self-deprecating and just have fun with it, it's different for sure.
Hey, Farhan, thanks so much for taking the time. Enjoy Grey Cup weekend. And hey, just on the way out, why don't you plug Farhan with the Moj? I really enjoyed the episodes. Tell people where they can get the podcast and what you guys have cooking this week.
Yeah, you can get it on all your favorite podcast platforms for sure. And yes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, like all of it. So tune in. Usually we post every Tuesday, and it's Bob Marjanovic and myself. It's full TV production. Had an interview last week with Doug Flutie, and he was fantastic talking about his CFL moments and things of that nature. He's got great takes and opinions. So down the NFL, the NCAA, and the CFL, lots of betting stuff. So it's a lot of fun. So yeah, log on.
Perfect. Thanks for doing this, Farhan. Have a great weekend.
Take care, guys.
Good stuff. There it is. Farhan Lalji of TSN joining us from Hamilton. We're going to get back to Hamilton in a minute and hook up with Dustin Nielson, who's done such a great job all year calling games on television. He'll actually have the radio call this week. Before we do that, folks, it's Grey Cup weekend. Your menus should be planned right now, what you're going to be eating, what you're going to be drinking. And if you're drinking beer, may I suggest that with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Grey Cup, you get your hands on Winnipeg's finest beer, which of course is Little Brown Jug in the new 1919, the iconic 1919 brand, my go-to. But you might want to also try the special beer that's just been brewed for the 5th anniversary, the Brute IPA, which is a champagne-like extra dry IPA with flavors of citrus and stone fruit. Had a couple last week with Andrew Collier down at the big 5th year anniversary party. Phenomenal, a little stronger than many of the other beers, but they've got it all down. And of course, you can pick up Little Brown Jug, the Winter Variety Pack, 1919 and more at your local beer store. But consider popping down to the tap room and brewery on William Avenue. Just an amazing facility. If you haven't been there, certainly worth your while to head down there. Try a few of the beers. You can buy it all there as well. Not to mention some amazing merchandise, which might be perfect for stocking stuffers or under the tree. And they'll also curate great gift boxes. They've got some that are already made, or you can decide what you want. Get some merch, get some beer, put it all together. They'll wrap it up all nice for you and deliver it citywide. I do know they're rocking free delivery right now as well. All there. Find out online as well at littlebrownjug.ca. The teammates of the game for Princess Auto last week was the Winnipeg Blue Bomber fans. Maybe the best Princess Auto teammates of the game all season long, and the most well-deserved. What a day that was on Sunday. Going to be a little warmer in Hamilton, going to be a little warmer in Winnipeg, but hopefully the end result is the same, with the Bombers being victorious and this time bringing the Grey Cup back. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around, plus items from the new farm category. Everything you need to make and complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto, family-owned, Canada-wide, headquartered right here in Winnipeg, 2 local locations, and you can get some of those great gift ideas and find out more 24/7, 365. Make it work over at princessauto.com. And our friends at Boston Pizza have a big Grey Cup party happening. Over at Boston Pizza, Polo Park is the Boston Pizza Grey Cup viewing party. Here's what you need to know. The official Winnipeg Blue Bombers Defend the Cup viewing party is at BP Polo Park, 690 St. James Street. Special guests, Blue Bomber alumni, including the great Rod Hill, the Bomber cheer team, Buzz and Boomer, awesome Bomber prize packs, happy hour food and drink specials, including $4 ice cold Coors Lights. If you'd like to book a spot or a table, give Boston Pizza Polo Park a call at 925-4107. And if you can't make it to BP Polo Park on Sunday, watch the game on the big screen with great happy hour specials and $4 ice cold Coors Lights at your nearest Boston Pizza, or order one of our meal deals for takeout and delivery at bostonpizza.com. I did get the Wing Lovers meal deal last night for the Viking game leading into the hockey game. If you do like wings, Boston wings are amazing. That is a heck of a deal right now for the triple order. You can order it all online at bostonpizza.com. All right. Huge marble race coming up at the end of the program. We do have to talk a little more Jets. Scott Billeck is feet on the ground in Vancouver after last night's game in Seattle. So we'll talk to Scotty in a few minutes. Make sure you stick around, for those of you with us live on YouTube, for the marble race towards the end of the program. But right now, before we get to Scott Billeck, let's get to Dustin Nielson. Caught up with him just before the program. He had some meetings this afternoon, so we couldn't do it live. But Dusty's in Hamilton. He'll have the Grey Cup radio call and join us a little earlier here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. My good friend, co-host of the Lock Shop podcast, of which we discussed the Grey Cup today at length. Check it out. Search Lock Shop on your favorite podcast feed. He will be the national voice for TSN Radio for the game. And you can tell he's all business because, as Remis mentioned before we came on, potentially the first ever visit on WST with his hair looking all neat and no hat. In fact, you almost look like 6-year-old Marshall, who we pulled out of the bullpen for the partner parlay right now. What's going on, pal? How are you?
I do look young when I'm shaved and I don't have a hat on. How old are you? I'm 16. I work really hard for a 16-year-old. So, but yeah, you know what? It's all business out here, Huss. I get a chance to call the Grey Cup on radio this week. I got to be serious about it.
Yeah, no one's ever said that it's all business at Grey Cup week, or if it is, you're doing it wrong. I will say that, though. A big opportunity for you, obviously, an amazing year calling the games on the TSN and getting back in the booth one more time. And what a matchup we've got. I mean, a rematch of 2019, the home team, the TiCats, taking on the team that was the beast of the Canadian Football League all year long in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pretty juicy matchup, and I imagine the Hammer's ready for it.
You can't script it any better. Obviously, this place is going to be buzzing. I got in late last night. Obviously the hotel where we're all staying here with TSN, it's all done up. There's TiCats and CFL stuff everywhere. Even I don't have it. My room key's a CFL room key. It's pretty cool. But it's a dream scenario. Like if you're the CFL at the beginning of the year, having the Riders and Riderville and everything would be excellent, I guess. But I think from a league perspective, you probably wanted the Bombers and the TiCats. I mean, the TiCats are at home after coming in with the Grey Cup expectations and having a little bit of a roller coaster season. And then you've got the defending champions who returned so many from that group and have looked like a juggernaut throughout the season. So now you've got the defending champions who've been by far the best team in the league this year going on the road to take on the very team that they upset 2 years ago in the last game that we saw. You can't script it any better, man. Like this is laid out in an ideal fashion for the Canadian Football League. Tim Hortons Field is going to be absolutely packed. TiCats fans are they're nuts. I mean, it's the next level. We saw what happened in Toronto last week. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure security will be cranked up a notch, and it probably has to be because it's going to be an amazing game. I haven't called a football game on the radio in a long time, so I'm excited to kind of get back behind the mic and my AM radio roots and call this football game. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good time. I went to the TiCats the party last night, the TiCats party here, and it was fun. Anthony Calvillo was there, and I never really had a chance to be around him because he was gone by the time I was covering the league for TSN. And I just stood there next to him for like 50 minutes last night and just listened to him talk. And then when I left, I said, "Hey man," I said, "I'm Dustin. I'm doing play-by-play now for TSN." I said, "I just wanted to say it was great to stand here and listen to you for the last hour." Like that was awesome. So
you get any nugs from AC about the matchup on Sunday? What did he have to say?
Didn't dive into it too much. We were mostly talking about stories from his career, to be honest with you. So we didn't dive into the matchup too much, but even within, the storyline, the bigger picture storyline, terrific. But even the matchups within this game are going to be sensational as well.
Well, let's get to that. I'm sure you spent a good portion of your flight both looking at the map and intermittently doing prep for both teams coming in. When you really dive into this, we can talk about the Bomber defense. We know the quarterbacks. Was there anything else that stood out about maybe key matchups in this game that you think will be pivotal when it comes to determining who's raising the Grey Cup at the end of the football game?
It shouldn't surprise anybody, but this thing will come down to the line of scrimmage because that's why both of these teams are here, right? Like that's why both of these teams are here. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have the best offensive line in the Canadian Football League and the best defensive line in the Canadian Football League. And I think the TiCats are probably, they're number 2 for sure, in my opinion, in the offensive line. And, with AC Leonard and Jonathan Woodard, that Riders D line was pretty good this year. But if they're not number 2, the TiCats defensive line is probably number 3 in the league. Like Jagarrett Davis has been arguably the best player in the playoffs so far. He's been terrific. Dylan Wynn is an absolute monster in the middle of that defense, and Julian Hauser can make plays on the outside as well. So now what can they do against offensive line that's just full of all-stars? That's basically what they have in Winnipeg. So for me, it's going to come down to if there are any breaks in either offensive line, because we know Winnipeg can run the ball. I'm sure they'll want to run the ball like crazy, and the offensive line is capable of doing that. So there's a lot of skilled players on both sides of the ball, obviously, with Kenny Lawler and Andrew Harris. And I love Rasheed Bailey. I think Bailey's an absolute stud in this league. You got Jalen Acklin and Brandon Banks on the other side. Don Jackson's been great since the TiCats have found a way to move the ratio around and get him into the running back position for them. But I think it might be a boring answer, man, but I think this comes down to both lines on both sides of the ball.
Well, and you know what, and for that, and this is part of the reason, and we got into this a little bit on the lock shop, and I think when the player props come out on the weekend, we can take a look at it a little bit more. But I really think that Hamilton is going to go into this game realizing that if they don't stop the run, they have zero chance of winning the football game and really sell out to try to stop Andrew Harris. And I think that is going to give Zach Collaros and his receivers plenty of opportunities for big plays. And, the Bombers can do it both ways. We have seen Collaros. He, by all rights, should have led the league in passing this year, but, ended up getting sat down for a game and a half down the stretch. Much to my chagrin with a 13-1 ticket, but I digress. And despite the fact, Nick Dembski had a very uncharacteristic, it wasn't even a bobble, it was essentially a tip drill to Ed Gainey at the beginning of the West Final. There were some other mistakes. I don't expect that to happen, but in the second half, when the Bombers really needed it, I mean, to me, there were two plays that stood out that weren't involving Andrew Harris. One was that catch by Kenny Lawler, and the other was the catch by Darvin Adams, who by his standards had a very quiet season.
That was a huge catch, though.
It absolutely was. I mean, a big first down, and that, they kept it going and put it into the end zone both times for the touchdowns that ended up winning them the football game. So, I mean, the Bombers can get it done in a number of ways, but I really do think that, if from Orlando Steinhauer's perspective, he remembers what happened in 2019. And if they're getting run all over and the Bombers just keep the football and keep running for 6 and 7 and 8 yards a carry, it could be a long, long afternoon for the TiCats. So how they handle that, I think, will be pivotal. And then what Zach Collaros is able to do with the opportunities, I think that inevitably come up in the passing game because of how much focus there is on the run game, can certainly be a part of it. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. I mean, it's kind of funny when you look at Winnipeg, there's not a lot of suspense or storylines as opposed to who's in it. This is the team pretty much that started the season. I mean, you obviously got a new kicker and Winston Rose came in at the end, but this is the unit that was, a historically good defense for Winnipeg. And, we've talked a lot about the running game. Johnny Augustine was great in his start. Brady Oliveira got it done, but Andrew Harris is there. But what do you make of Hamilton coming into this game with Dane Evans as the starter after Jeremiah Masoli pretty much has been the guy for the last couple months? But man, did Orlando have a quick hook, taking him out first series into the second quarter in the East Final when things weren't going well.
Yeah, I think the quick hook kind of led you to believe that, he's more than happy with having Dane Evans in that situation. And Masoli hadn't done anything up until that point, then had that fumble, and then that was it. It was like, okay, we're going to Dane Evans. I mean, as far as coaches' decisions and coaches' hunches go, it worked out all right. Dane Evans goes 16 of 16, doesn't have an incompletion, throws for one touchdown pass to Jalen Acklin, and then, what he does all year, he rushes in a couple of touchdowns as well. So it certainly worked out. And, I thought it was funny a little bit earlier in the week when people were like, confirmed Dane Evans is starting. Of course Dane Evans is starting. He went 16 of 16 in the game to get you to the Grey Cup. And Mazzoli's been interesting all season because there was a stretch there, like from midway through the season to probably the final quarter of the season in there, that third quarter stretch where, he was over 300 yards. He looked like he was kind of clicking. But then for Steinhauer to, know his quarterback situation and say, nope, we're going to Evans. And the reason this isn't an issue with this team, which I think helps them going into this game, is because all year long, this has been the situation for the Hamilton TiCats quarterback. Is it ideal to say that there's two guys? Even look, Watford has 2 wins. He was 2-0 in starts this year. Like all 3 of their quarterbacks in that room have contributed in one way or another. So Dane Evans is going to start this game. I know Dane Evans has the ability to have a good game, but if he doesn't, I mean, you'll still have some Mazzoli sightings possibly, and we'll see. I mean, they even brought Mazzoli in on short yardage at the end of that East Final when it's been the role reversal the entire year. Mazzoli came in, got the job done, ran back off the field. So those two guys do have a really good relationship. I'm very interested to see. I mean, I talked about the lines, but I'm very interested to see what type of game Dane Evans can have against this Bombers defense, because they're going to need him to be not perfect, but pretty darn close to perfect. And is he capable of doing that? It's a big stage for him, big opportunity for him to lock up something moving forward in the Canadian Football League. So, yeah, that's one of the top 3 storylines for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think back to 2 years ago. I mean, when the TiCats were the favorites going in, there was a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger, and they should have been. They were 15-3. I mean, in a lot of cases, they were very much the team that the Bombers have been this year from start to finish. And I think it's a cautionary tale for Winnipeg, the way things went. But when it comes to the path to victory for the TiCats, I mean, we talked about the line of scrimmage. I think first and foremost, they're going to need to ball out, do what they can to minimize the Bombers' rushing attack. And then there's going to be a ton of pressure and probably one-on-one coverage in the secondary. But offensively, for the TiCats to put up the amount of points that they're going to need to just be in this game, to have it tight in the fourth quarter, what do you think needs to happen?
I think they need to stick to the run, to be honest with you. I mean, I think what we saw early in that game against Toronto, and then saw it later when they kind of were trying to seal it away. I mentioned it earlier. Don Jackson has been excellent since coming in. I mean, they managed to move some things around, get an American into that starting running back spot over the last month or so. And he had a ton of jump last week. He looked extremely dynamic last week. And this wasn't a guy who played a ton, in the first 3 quarters of the season. So it's not like he's getting worn down at this point. So I think, in order to take some of that pressure off of Dane Evans, I think, you're going to have to get Jackson involved heavily and stick with it. Like if it doesn't work early, and it might not work early, I don't think you can just say, man, we got to get away from this. We're going to have Dane Evans throw the ball 35 times in this game. I don't think that's going to be a strategy for success. Maybe I end up being proved wrong, but I think they need to get Jackson going because he's got that big play ability. He's not gonna pound it down your throat like an Andrew Harris will, but Jackson's a guy who can bust one for 30, 40, 50 yards. So I think, and you know what? I do think they're going to have to get pretty creative. I think you're going to have to see some creativity out of that offense. And they like to do that. They'll get the ball to Tim White. They'll get the ball to Brandon Banks. They'll get the ball to Ackland, coming underneath on a quick pitch and quick toss and things like that. So I do think, from a coaching perspective, the TiCats are going to have to get a little bit more creative than the Bombers will with, a steady diet of Harris and then some short passes to Rasheed Bailey in the slot and the odd deep shot down the field to Kenny Lawler. I think the TiCats are going to have to establish something with Jackson and then mix in some creativity if they're going to do things offensively.
Dustin Nielson from TSN and the Lock Shop and the AM Nasty in Edmonton with us here. The AM Nasty has a whole new meaning. Usually it's the AM like the morning, but it's kind of getting a little gritty here with the radio call on the AM dial in many cities across the country. Let me just ask you this from a play-by-play perspective. Is the job any different doing it on radio than it is doing it on television as you've done all year?
Yeah, it will be. On TV, we pretty, the format's the same. Like we'll come out, they'll have the return. Boom, here's a shot of Zach Collaros. So I go, here's Zach Collaros. Here's his numbers. Boom, boom, boom. After the first play, it's like, let's take a look at the TiCats defense and all that. So, we probably won't have a lot of that on the radio broadcast. That's the same sort of structure that we had on TV. I think I'm going to feel a little bit more relaxed doing the game on radio as opposed to, 2 million people watching on TV. So I'll probably have a little bit more fun on the radio. But you know what? There'll be opportunity. You have to set the scene a little bit more. Kind of, it goes back to my radio play-by-play roots when I was starting. So there's a difference. And if anybody tells you there isn't, they're lying to you. There's certainly a difference. And I'm looking forward to, like I was saying, I haven't called a radio game, hockey or football in like 5 years. So this is going to be fun to kind of just go back to being able to fully describe everything to people. Because I think one of the things on TV, because of my background in radio, I probably tended to do that a little bit too much. Like when I was starting with the CFL and TSN a couple years ago. So now I can really go back and just, who is it? Kevin Harlan, or is it Ian Eagle? Anyway, whoever does the Monday night on Westwood One.
Oh, Harlan.
Yeah, Harlan. So
the best.
But it's like, he'll be like, rubs his hand on his pants, turns the ball over a little bit. I'm just like, God, I love this guy. He's one of my favorites. So yeah, I'll crank it up a notch. I'll make sure everybody knows, like, because on TV, you're just sort of adding to it. On radio, you're painting the picture of everything. I could lie to the nation and nobody would know us. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, speaking of Harlan, I'd say it's about 50-50. Maybe we can get a prop on this at Cool Bet that one of those maniac box J boys or other TiCat fans are going to end up on the field at some point, and this could be your opportunity for the Kevin Harlan moment of driving. He's at the 20. He's at the 30. He's drunk. Security's after him. His most iconic calls have been bullshit that's been happening on the field outside of the actual game, and it's been legendary.
Well, and you know what? On TV, I could never do that, because they won't show it, right? Like they won't get to a shot on it. But like I said, on the radio, there might not even be a streaker, but there will be a streaker at some point. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm working with Natea J. I've never had an opportunity to work with him. So, going in to do a Grey Cup with somebody you never worked for before is a little interesting, but by all accounts, and I've listened to him a little bit, he's really good. So, a younger guy, a lot of energy there as well. So we should have a really fun broadcast. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, man. Cannot wait for it. We've had Natea on the program a couple times. Great dude. I know you guys will do a great job. And of course, CGOB will have it. If you're not watching the game on TSN and you're driving around, you can listen to the kid here beginning at 5:00 on Sunday afternoon. Have a great weekend. Maybe I'll see you. Stay tuned. Keep your phone on.
I will, buddy. I'll see you later.
All right. Great stuff with Dusty on the program. We do have a new lock shop coming up as well after the program today. Probably I don't know, around 5:30. Pay attention to my Twitter. We'll fire it out. You can watch it live on Dusty's Twitter at Nielson TSN 1260. But if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, to the Lock Shop. We started off with all of our Grey Cup picks, and then we get into our usual fiesta of the NFL on Friday. Okay, couple things before we get to Billeck. First off, thank you very much, Ryan Friesen, one of the most controversial members of the WST chat day after day, coming through with a very nice super chat. We appreciate you, dude. Thanks so much. And Remis, we can officially announce we have hit the milestone that I said yesterday that we would add to the marble race today. Is it official? We now have 6,000 YouTube subs? Here comes the chat. Here comes the chat. There we are. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. That is awesome. Onward and upward. But I am adding a WST t-shirt, and this is very limited edition. No more at Royal. Only a couple left anywhere. WST hats. So we'll put those in for third place. We've got the hoodie for first place. We've got the I Love Rye package for second. We've got a little WST prize pack as well. And we will also have a Grey Cup DQ cake. And speaking of DQ, Nick and Nikki are ready for the game. Our pal Chris in the chat picked up a Blue Bomber Grey Cup cake yesterday that you can check out at DQ Manitoba. Still time to get set up for the game on Sunday. And of course, 4 locations, the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. So thanks a lot to Chris. Certainly thanks a lot to Nick and Nikki. And especially if you're in St. Patel, you can also make that Grey Cup spread a lot better with a Skip or Uber Eats order from DQ over on St. Anne's. And of course, Canadian Club is the official sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk and your Winnipeg Blue Bombers. There was a ton of CC being poured at IG Field, and I imagine there'll be plenty being poured around the city and province this weekend. You can get the great taste of Canadian Club at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And right now for the holiday season, see the Canadian Club displays when you go into a Manitoba liquor marts. Be eligible to win 5,000 air miles as well as bonus air miles on all your Canadian Club purchases. Make sure to stay tuned for the marble race at the end of the program, with some great prizes with our friends over at Canadian Club. We will update the odds before we finish up with Coolbet Canada. But before we get to the marble race, the 6K marble race, before we give all this stuff away, let's head out to Vancouver and bring in our guy Scott Billeck, who is boots on the ground, getting ready for the Jets, finishing up this quick back-to-back on the West Coast after a 3-0 win last night in Seattle. Scotty, thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Anytime. Working off 2.5 hours of sleep, but that's the glamorous part of the road. So,
hey, well, you know what? It did look pretty glamorous, to be honest with you. Watching the pictures, I just have to ask you: was the arena and the scene that we've got for the NHL's newest team as cool as it looked on social media? I mean, yeah. I'll tell you what. Just following your feed, it immediately went up to number 1 on my must-go places to see the Jets on the road.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's. So I think the coolest thing is you kind of walk up to it and you see the Space Needle right away. I don't know if that's me on the audio or if that's on your end. So just let me know if I need to mute something.
Oh, that's me. I'll fix it.
All right.
Don't worry, it's not you.
Yeah, well, you never know. And so and then you walk in, and so like the coolest thing about this place is you walk in on the upper level, right? And so, like, it's sunken, and they built down instead of building up. They built down into it, so it seats like 17,000. Pretty cool for arena that they basically took. It's been there forever, like gutted the place and then kind of redid it, built the rink in there. But like the coolest thing, you walk in and you see like these 2 giant jumbotrons, one on each, basically one in each zone. So they don't have the traditional center ice kind of scoreboard like most places have. They got one in each kind of end, which is really cool. We call them dueling scoreboards. And then at the end of, I think it's the south side of the rink, maybe it's the west side, I'm not entirely sure, but they have like this glass, right? So like you can see outside, and it looks really cool. Me and Mac McIntyre, Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press were like, "Oh, I wonder what it'd be cool if there was like a thunder show." It's just like inside, like they have like the living wall, I think they call it, which is like it's this green space. Everything's green there. Like you couldn't. The plates for the dinner for supper were like wooden, and then so like they're like these wooden plates that they want people to like compost after. And so it's the first rink I've ever been to in the league, and I've been to probably 21 of them now, I think, that has like so they have a small garbage can, a small recyclable, and then this big compost garbage can sort of thing where you throw like your plates and your cutlery and all this stuff. So like it's called Climate Pledge Arena, and they're doing a heck of a job. They're in-house announcers. They call it the most sustainable rink, and I don't think they say the world, but maybe North America, something like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like it's just, Seattle's a cool place to begin with. Like you go down to Pike Place, you get fresh fish, you got the fish shop and stuff if you get there on the right time. It's there's a Starbucks on every corner, obviously, and then you kind of just go to this place, and yeah, it's really cool. It's a good vibe outside. They had like a bunch of stuff. It's warm, right? Like, well, warm. It's not minus 25 out. It's like plus 6 or whatever it was. And even at night. So, it was really nice. And press boxes, like they've put their own little screens in so you can watch the replays right next to you. Nashville has that, but in Nashville, anyways, not very good in Nashville. So, and then the in-game show, it's good. They have live music. I don't know if you guys saw the American anthem last night.
It's still going on, actually.
It took a while, but it's good. There was a lot of jokes. Yeah, there was a lot of jokes going on, but it was cool. And yeah, like they do it up. It's not Vegas. It's not Vegas like that, but they do a good job, right? They do a good job to attract fans that would, not really your traditional NHL market, I suppose. But they're doing that stuff. There's lots of stuff, a lot of diversity things too. They had a thing about Indigenous peoples. They had a night the night before where some a guy had made a logo for the jersey, and they wore those jerseys. They were doing some other stuff as well for this African place that they had there, and so like it was just like. It's it lives up to kind of its name. It lives up to Seattle, what Seattle is all about. It's very clean. I mean, everything like it's Seattle in a nutshell. And it was very cool. And then you kind of got to watch a hockey game there too, which was part of it. Like, the whole thing was like, I could write a story on this rink. Right. And then there was a game to be had at the same time, but it was just a cool experience. And some of the players that talked about it, they're like, yeah, this is a pretty cool place. Brendan Dillon, who had played there, for the Seattle Thunderbirds when he was playing junior. I think he was one of the last guys to score a goal in that building for the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, he talked about that after the game. I know that they were asking him about, that connection. And, of course, great for Dennis to be back at around a spot where he worked, and TSN did a bit on that on the game last night. Yeah. But let's get to the game. Yeah. A really important win for the Winnipeg Jets in my book. I mean, I kind of likened it earlier to a Tuesday night was sort of the mess after a party. I mean, nothing was really right. Everything was sort of sluggish. Last night, they cleaned up. And tonight, if they can get the win, it'll be the Febreze around the room to completely eliminate all remnants of what happened on Tuesday night against the Carolina Hurricanes. I think we just lost Scott. We'll get him back up there in just a minute. But no, Scotty, you're good. You're good. I think you just clicked out on my screen for a second. But I mean, to me, it was the Connor and Connor show. I thought that Connor Hellebuyck was the best player for the Jets last night, and certainly once we got to the third period, Kyle Connor certainly took over. Oh, this is wild. We've got a little double action here, Remo, if you want to get that in. We're going to get Scott back in. But I mean, to me, it started with Connor Hellebuyck. I thought that he played. Listen, this was not a masterpiece by the Winnipeg Jets for a full 60 minutes. I'll be honest, I didn't love the second period, and I thought they gave up a few pretty quality scoring chances to the Seattle Kraken. But there was Connor Hellebuyck in the second period, sort of bailing the team out on a couple plays they'd probably like to have back. But this game was very much up in the air until Kyle Connor took over in the third period. I mean, do you see it the same way? Sort of Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuyck really leading the way for a team to get a very important win coming off Tuesday?
Yeah, and it was interesting because Connor Hellebuyck had a kind of a pretty slow. Well, I think the shots ended up in Jets' favor after the first, but Seattle put a lot in, and you kind of wonder, a guy who's like Hellebuyck, who's pretty, he likes a high volume of shots. I mean, you were kind of wondering, if that slow kind of start where he didn't do a whole lot would be something. So, but it wasn't. I mean, he played really well. He stepped up. I think, he had something to improve. Kyle Connor, I mean, the goals are ridiculous. I mean, that third goal, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything in terms of, the outcome, obviously, but the goal is just ridiculous. Like, he's coming in full speed, splits the, and then just this little chip shot. And then, like, I don't know, like, I've seen guys do this, but it's just like, it's so effortless. And we're sitting there and you're kind of just like, not like cheering, but you're just like in amazement of like how good that goal is. And I thought that was kind of it. Obviously the give and go with Scheifele was vintage kind of, that line, right? I mean, that's kind of what that line does. It was perfect. I mean, Connor lays it off to Scheifele, or Connor moves to the slot, Scheifele finds him, and boom, it's in the back of the net. And so that's, we've seen Kyle Connor do this, right? Like, I mean, this is the difference, I think, between, and this is a very point of contention among the fan base with the CSW line, I guess it's called. But it's a different line in the sense that Kyle Connor is now the guy that's driving Blake Wheeler and even Mark Scheifele.
100%.
And I think that's why, I hesitate to say this because I know people are going to get upset, but it's like, give this line maybe some time to see what happens now, because it's Kyle Connor's line. And he's the winger, I get it. Mark Scheifele's the number one center on this team, but it's Kyle Connor doing this. I mean, Kyle Connor is pushing back defense. I mean, everybody knows. And if you're Seattle and you didn't know who Kyle Connor was last night, and I think Kyle Connor is one of the most underrated guys in this league, but he's just so good. I mean, I think he's still tied for third in NHL scoring, and the only guys ahead of him are Draisaitl and Ovechkin, and like that's a pretty good place to be. So I thought it was good, and then Connor Hellebuyck was just, it's almost like the guys after the game were surprised that Connor Hellebuyck, this was his first shutout of the season.
Dylan said that, and I was a little too, to be honest. Like, he's played so well this year. I'm like, wait a sec, that's his first.
Exactly, and that's kind of what the thing was. It's like, yeah, I mean, and Hellebuyck was kind of like, yeah, finally, right? Like, but he's been close before, and he was almost surprised that he hadn't had one yet. He obviously knew that he didn't, but yeah, it was just, and I think the other thing too is the PK went 5 for 5, and like that's a huge thing for this Jets team. And they talked about it pregame. Brendan Dillon said they kind of had a meeting about it amongst them in terms of the PK group. And they're like, yeah, we have pride in this. Like, we need to be better. Like, I mean, it's just flat out, we're the worst or the second worst in the league, and they need to be better. And they came out and did it, and all credit to Connor Hellebuyck. He's the one that is usually the best PK, but that PK only allowed 2 shots across, 8 minutes and 15 seconds, because the fifth penalty kill was a 15-second thing after the lengthy 4-on-4 there. But yeah, it was a tidy game. People are going to say, oh, it's Seattle and whatever, but you need these games sometimes to get yourself on a roll. And I think, the biggest test will be tonight, right? Like, is the PK going to allow 2 more goals tonight? And then last night wasn't a big deal because they went 4 for 4 against the Wild, but also lost 7-1. So I think it's got to be consistency, but to be consistent, you have to have confidence. And I think this PK last night went out there, took a bunch of penalties, or the team took a bunch of penalties, and they took care of it. And so, and to only allow 2 shots, I mean, that's pretty good even against a bad team, or a team that's not, that's struggling right now, I suppose. So,
hey, one thing on the PK, one thing on the PK I wanted to bring up, and I mean, I don't know, maybe they figured that this is a great chance to give the PK some reps to get back in the run. But
maybe,
I mean, I didn't like Adam Lowry's penalty. I thought that was, there wasn't a lot of benefit to what he did. Blake Wheeler took another one that you wouldn't like to see. And I mean, Nikolai Ehlers, I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, for all the great things he does, if you hold a defenseman's stick for 10 seconds in the offensive zone, you're getting called each and every time. I would say this, Scott, if they want to give themselves the best chance to win, all we need to do is remember the penalties that were taken, including a terrible one by the captain in Vancouver the last time they played, which really was the difference in the game because they dominated a 5-on-5. Demko played well, and it was those 2 power play goals that ended up killing them. So as much as it was great to see the penalty kill have a strong night, look better, and get the results that they needed, I do think that the Winnipeg Jets as a team, especially those guys up front that are playing big minutes, need to be cognizant of their sticks and just using their head to not give teams unnecessary opportunities for a PK that last night notwithstanding has been struggling and needs to improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, some of the penalties have been egregious, and it's especially those offensive zone penalties. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you don't need to be taking those ones. Like, you guys are a better defensive team. You can rely on your goalie still. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the area, right? Like, a part of them being better on the PK is also going to be just being more disciplined, so they don't have to. You don't need to. Paul Maurice said it last night. That number isn't getting much better this year. It's always going to be bad because it's very difficult to dig yourself out when you start the season off 50%. And that's what the Jets did essentially, right? And so
they were 66 going into last night, which is still brutal.
Like, it's bad, and you're not going to get to 80% this year. So, at the same time as, it needs to be better. Of course it does, right? Because it's cost them games. It cost them the Carolina game. It cost them the Vancouver game. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but don't overdo it. Like, you don't need to try and, make this penalty kill be, 95% over the last 10 games either. You need it just to be, you need it to be average or at least better than average. And you need it to, you need to stay out of the box. And, some of the penalties or whatever. It was Francis St. Laurent last night. Nikolai Ehlers, I think Jim Toth said this on the Twitter. And I asked Maurice after the game, I kind of asked Toth's question, did Ehlers need another number on his jersey for St. Laurent to call that boarding penalty that was just clear as day? Which was, Maurice just laughed and walked away, which was hilarious. But, it's just like, I think the Jets have played last night a game where they were drawing penalties and when they got down, I don't know. It's almost like they're just like, they're trying to be this more aggressive team. And I think part of that byproduct of that is going to be taking some of these penalties. You're trying to stand guys up the blue line or in the neutral zone or even at the offensive blue line and trying to, break up plays and that sort of thing. It's going to lead to holdings or hooking or tripping or whatever you want to call it. There's going to be penalties like that. And I think that's part of the growing pains, I suppose, of this team kind of, what did Maurice call it, like a significant philosophical change. That was on the power play. But I think overall this team has, changed a lot of the way that they play. They can play that more aggressive style and they're doing it. But I think part of it is, they're still learning that, I believe. So
I'll just tell you this. I mean, if the PK didn't play the way they did last night, and for instance, say a couple of those got in, and instead of it being a 1-0 game going into the third period, it's 2-1 the other way. We'd be breathing fire about some of the decision making of the things that led to the penalties. But good thing is, it didn't cost them last night. Much like the Bombers' turnovers last Sunday in a game that they won, let that be a cautionary tale. Let them be better the next time out, and that time out is tonight. And of course, with Eric Comrie making the start. Scotty, thanks so much for doing this. Looking forward to the game. Looking forward to all of your coverage on Twitter at Scott Billeck, and of course in the Winnipeg Sun. Enjoy the game tonight. Travel safely, and enjoy the Grey Cup on Sunday. We'll catch up next week.
Yeah, we'll do, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, House.
Right on. There he is, Scott Billeck, joining us from the road. Jets and Canucks tonight. One final game in the Pacific time zone, 9 p.m. this evening. And you can catch that one on, I believe, a TSN game. All right, let's get Remis back in here. It is the final 15 of today's program. We've got a special marble race. Of course, our good friends at Canadian Club have the co-branded hoodie, which we'll give out to first place. We've got the I Love Rye package with including some delicious Canadian Club. Shout out to Manny Fran, by the way. Manny won last week or the week before. Hooked up with Manny earlier this week. Was all fired up to get his hands on that. And a special third prize because today we're thanking you. Well, we're thanking you guys every day, but for helping us get to 6,000 subs. If you haven't subbed already, be part of the next 1,000. Hit that red subscribe button, and you do have to be subscribed to win. So you don't want to make yourself ineligible by not being a subscriber. It's free to do. And by the way, turn on the notifications as well when we do go on occasionally outside of our regular hours of 1 to 3 Central. And then third prize, WST Canadian Club t-shirt, as well as the most limited of limited editions, the dad hat. I think there's only a couple of these that were not snapped up at Royal Sports or on the site. So we've got that. And we do have a DQ cake for a mystery number of finishers. We'll tell you about that coming up a little later on. So Remo, if we can, let's open up the, if you haven't already, let's open up the marbles. People can put in / marbles in the chat. We will collect everyone that's entered, and I'll do the cool bet lines, but and then we'll get ready for it. We good to go? I see a lot of marbles in the chat. I assumed you've opened it up already.
Yes, the marble race is open. / marbles in the chat. People are getting very excited. I did it. And I got to say, Huss, I actually was muted the last time I was on. And where I joked about being muted, but here.
Did you break the mute light?
I just
Maybe
don't
we
think I
should
turned
make
it
that
on.
the mute light. So when it's muted, it's literally like spinning around in your face, and that would make it highly less likely that we would actually miss it again.
You know what? It's on and it's working. I just don't look at it, I guess. But it was definitely on.
I think we need to get your dad to jimmy up the mute light to that.
To be way bigger, yeah.
If you're muted, it's just literally the goal light running around in your head, and that might actually be a neat little hack that we could make happen.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, ! marbles. Get in there, folks. We'll give you another couple minutes to get in. If you're new here, we do this on Friday afternoon. We've got some great prizes from our friends at Canadian Club, the Nick and Nicky DQ, and of course, right here, us at Winnipeg Sports Talk. We've got a final little bit of the swag, which we'll get out to for our winners today. But let's do one final look at the Grey Cup lines over at Coolbet Canada. The Bombers are holding steady as 3-point favorites in the game. But what is really significant, the point spread hasn't changed very much all week, but a huge drop in the money line number since yesterday. Yesterday, if you wanted to bet the Bombers, even when the line went from 3.5 to 3, it was very strange. Bombers open at -200. And just if you follow along, if you're not familiar with it, a -200 line means you're a relatively heavy favorite, and you'd have to bet $200 to win 100. So your $200 bet would pay you back 300. It went down to -185. Then it was 189. Right now, this is by far the best time to get into the Bombers if you just simply want to bet them to win. Coolbet has them at -156 favorites. So if you bet $156, you'd win 100 on that. It would return 256. And that number on the TiCats, which was +160 earlier in the week, is now down to +127. There's some other interesting props right now. The total for the game is 44. So over or under 44, laying -10. We've got the some interesting one. Is it even money bet on the coin toss? If you are that guy that would love to have a little action on the coin toss, they're not even taking any juice on it. It's just +100 on either side. So if you bet $10, you'll win $10 on it. Vice versa. Very simple heads, tails. Dustin, you're going to get into some of these on the lock shop today, but the one bet that I really do like is a prop bet. Will there be a fumble recovered by the opposing team? Yes is +100, even money. No is -125. I really like yes. I mean, I just think the Bomber defense alone, I might actually wager on them. You get the other side of it too. So that's one. Some Arkell's bets on the halftime show, the length of the national anthem. Will there be a rouge in the game?
That's a good one.
Yes or no? -115. And here's a wild one. Will the score be the same as the 19 Grey Cup when Winnipeg won 33, Hamilton 12? That is a yes at +10,000. So basically 100 times your money if that happens. Not sure whether that's realistic, but maybe worth a fin on it. Certainly would be a great bet to cash. They've got some TD scores, anytime touchdown score. Andrew Harris is the favorite at -133. Kenny Lawler's even money. Nick Dembski's +110. Rasheed Bailey +125. Look at it. Darvin Adams +230. Might be some value there. And Zach Caleros to rush one in +450. So it's all there at Coolbet. Again, check the lock shop later on for more on the Grey Cup and our Friday NFL picks for the weekend. And if you've never used Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% deposit up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, Remo, I think we've given everyone plenty of time to get into the marble race. So if you would like, wrap it up, finish it up, and let's get ready to celebrate 6,000 in WST style with a marble race with some great prizes for our friends here in the YouTube chat.
Let's go. I was looking to see if Sean McGuire was listed for anytime touchdown score, but I guess you couldn't make the odds. Like, he would be below Andrew Harris.
Minus 500.
It would be. Yeah, they're not worth it. I'm disappointed not to see no Drew Wolotarski. I took him last week on DraftKings, and he almost had a touchdown, except he fumbled it on the goal line. But they seem to give him his one target a game around there, so that would be interesting. And I got a comment. I did see people saying, last week the Bombers' fumbles were all because of the weather. I'm like, you think? I wouldn't take anything that we watched last week into consideration at all. Those were the most inhumane playing conditions I've ever seen. So I think the Bombers are happy to be playing in what looks like it will be above zero. But here, I'll close the
close the marble race. I think it's going to be six above and mostly sunny. So a very different story than what we saw last week in Winnipeg. All that being said, I know no one would change a thing. My feet might change a thing because they did take 2 days to thaw out. But anyone that was at that game will have that incredible memory of how we all toughed it out behind the Blue Bombers and left with smiles on our faces despite being walking ice boxes. Beautiful. How many people we got in for today's marble race?
152. This might be the record, actually.
152. Beautiful, everybody.
I think 151 might be the record.
All right. So you get that in and pick a good course for this one, Remo. Just to clarify, everyone, we've got the Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie. I'm, in fact, wearing one of these right now. You can see with the cool patch. Canadian club, official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think we've got all the sizes left for the most part. We might not have any more double X's, but anyways.
I have one. Shout out to Jet Oil Tom.
That's right. We did the reversal. So anyways, we should have your size. And then second prize is the I Love Rye package, which, and I might even throw in a t-shirt too for the I Love Rye package. What the heck? So a bottle of CC, one of our WST t-shirts, and I think I've got some Bomber socks, which we'll throw in there as well. And then the WST package, which is the dad hat limited. I'm not even sure if we have any left. This could be the last one, but what better time to give it out, as well as one of the Winnipeg Sports Talk t-shirts that we did up with our friends at Canadian Club. And then we have a DQ Grey Cup cake. I believe it's a DQ cake, Grey Cup themed. And I believe we're going to have to pick this one up over at DQ St. Anne's. But I will confirm all that. And our benefactor has said we're going to give that one to Marble 108. And I'll say this as a caveat. If for some reason there's so many eliminations that 108 marbles don't actually finish the race, we'll give it to the final marble that crosses the finish line. So to recap, hoodie for first place, Rye package and a t-shirt for second, WST hat and Winnipeg Sports Talk t-shirt for third place, and marble number 108 across the line, a Grey Cup, a DQ cake for sure, and I think it will be a Grey Cup themed. So don't hold me to it. All right, Remo, how are we looking? We ready to roll?
We're looking pretty good. And shout out to, if everyone wondering about the hoodie, shout out to Candace in chat who won it last week. She says the hoodie is comfy AF.
Beautiful,
I don't know
beautiful.
what AF means, but
Oh,
sounds
by the
good.
way, you know what? Shout out to Candace, because Candace did come by, and I apologize. I didn't see her message, so she actually had to come by twice. That's the first time. I've usually been very good with that. But Candace came with a bit of a Winnipeg, and not just a Winnipeg Sports Talk legend, a legend amongst our new online community of sports shows. The one, the only Tristan Rivers Music, who is always here, a great supporter of ours, and the artist who has put together the music, the wacky music on the Kenny and Rennie show. And, now that I think about it, I sort of got gypped. I was on Kenny and Rennie last night, and Kenny didn't even play his own music. That was, listen, the hockey talk was great. It was a lot of fun. But I mean, Kenny and Rennie just isn't the same without Tristan's jam. So anyways, Candace, appreciate you. Tristan, you as well. And everyone with us here in the chat. All right, Commissioner, CTO, it's Friday afternoon. Are the marbles in? Let's get this going for maybe our biggest one yet.
Yeah, I got a race here. Hold on, let me bring it up. I forget what I call this one. Express Delivery. Express Delivery is the name. I will pull it up 1 second. I'm just sorting all of this out. We got a lot going on here on a Friday. A lot of people excited for the marble race, aren't they, Hustler?
Absolutely, absolutely. I get excited for the marble race, just because it's fun to give away and it's great to see everyone here. All right. So to recap, 6,000 subs on YouTube. Can't believe we got it done before the Grey Cup. Thank you to everyone that's with us daily here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're new, tell a friend. If you're listening on the podcast, do us a favor. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and put in a nice little blurb that you enjoy the program. That certainly helps. And whatever you do, make sure you've hit the thumbs up on the YouTube for everyone that's with us right now. We got to get to 200 likes for this one. Oh, and by the way, the cake, the DQ cake, we're going to have this one picked up at St. Anne's because it is already made, because it's a special Grey Cup cake. And if you look at DQ Manitoba, their IG story, it's up there as well, so you can see what it's like. And of course, and if you're not a winner, why don't you send them a message and get them to make one for you? You can get it at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQ locations. All right, so a Grey Cup edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk, a big game on Sunday. But first, it's Friday, and that means a special marble race on WST. Shout out to everyone that entered. Thanks for joining us. This is the way we finish off the week on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Remis, let's do this.
All right, we've dropped the marbles. This is express delivery. I don't know what is going on here, but they are all coming out onto this.
Wow, it's like a bit of a spider mode where they're going all over the place. We'll see what's going on. Ooh, this is Andre, the bullets in there. Val George, Comet.
Look at all of them go.
Gerald is in there right now. I had a tough time looking at it. Gerald Naku. Gerald's Chris Thiessen. Benjamin Gann is in the mix right now. But it is packed. I mean, there is not a lot of separation. Steve right now in front. Gerald, Steve, and Benjamin seemingly going head to head. All right, here we are. We've got some more obstacles coming up, although maybe there'll be an express delivery with somebody getting shot all the way to the front. Okay, here we are. This is what's happening right now. We'll see. There's also, we've got our first elimination. Miller Time looking good. Miller Time 1980, a former winner of the marble race, looking good. And look at this, the Win Dog. Mike Wynn in the mix. Mike is in second right now.
Oh, wait. Someone teleported to the end. Wait a second.
Teleporter. Holy smokes. Here we go. We have a winner. T-Bone. Nicole J in second. And who is third?
DJ Cool.
DJ Cool. Well, I guess now we know they call it express delivery. All right. Well, congratulations to all of you. T-Bone. DJ Cool and Nicole, if you could all send us an email to winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. We'll hit you back, get your size. Hopefully we've got it for you, and arrange a time to pick it up. Now, everybody else showing up down in the chat, we do have the Grey Cup DQ cake for marble number 108. Now, we really are not going to know who wins it until the final marble is across the finish line. But they're coming hot and heavy in right now on the express delivery. And you know what, Remo? This must be the one. I can't remember whether it was Jet Oil Tom or there was one race that we had a long time ago where we were watching all the marbles and then realized someone came in. I think this one must have been it with the teleporting spot. But anyways, TTT Bone, nice work. First place. You got the hoodie. Nicole J, we've got the I Love Rye package for you just in time for Christmas. And DJ Cool, 7, we have the WST package for you. Remo, go down and let me know who was number 108.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I should have picked one that we've done before. These teleport ones, not the best, but a bit of an anticlimactic. But it shows the T-Bone for winning. I like how you said that one. I'll scroll down to 108. We do have a 108 finisher.
Grey Cup cake for number 108. Who is it going to be?
It is Derek Schmidt.
Derek Schmidt. Okay, so Derek Schmidt. The hoodie was TTT Bone. The rye package was, again, Nicole J, I believe.
Nicole J got second. Yeah, Nicole
J, congratulations. And DJ Cool 7 got the WST package, dad hat, and t-shirt. Wow, it was a little anticlimactic. We need to make better notes on what the best marble tracks are. But that being said, we were sort of up against it. Maybe it was a good thing because we're going to be able to get this podcast out. A lot of people looking forward to it. Don't forget, everyone, if you're just popping in or you're looking to kind of crunch a whole ton of Bomber content over the weekend, we're going to put together a super cut, if you will, of all of our Grey Cup or most of our Grey Cup material. And we'll have that debut on the YouTube channel right after the Illegal Curve guys finish up at 11 tomorrow morning. So check the IC guys out tonight after the game. Check Kenny and Rennie out after the game. Check IC tomorrow morning at 9. And then when they finish up at 11, we'll have this live and you can watch it and enjoy it to your heart's content. Well, anytime really, but presumably you'll want to watch it sometime before 5 p.m. Congratulations again to our winners. Thanks again to all of our guests. Very busy show. Eddie Tait from Bomber Practice in Hamilton. Dustin Nielson getting ready to do his radio call in Hamilton. Farhan Lalji in Hamilton. And of course, Scott Billeck covering the Winnipeg Jets in Vancouver. It's going to be a great, great weekend. Again, if you want to go to the official Bomber watch party, it's over at Boston Pizza Polo Park. Give them a call for a reservation for a table. Bomber cheerleaders will be there. Some Blue Bomber alumni, Buzz and Boomer. Should be a really good time. And wherever you're watching the Grey Cup, I hope you have a great time. Make it a real fun and safe weekend. And fingers crossed, we'll be back here on Monday talking about a potential parade and most importantly, a Blue Bomber win on Sunday. Remo, what a week it's been.
So much fun. We came off the high of the West Final, which was a blast, and I think we're officially warmed up now. I'm finally thawed.
It took a while.
We had, I was going to say we had the great Jets win on Tuesday, but no, we didn't have that. We had the Jets win yesterday, the trip to Seattle, and just a great week of talking about Canadian football. And looking forward to the Bombers hopefully repeating. And I'd love to I'm just getting giddy thinking about the possibility of a parade for this year. I didn't get to go last year, but this one we will be at.
Oh, we will be at. We'll have some special Winnipeg Sports Talk coverage of any sort of celebrations. But before we talk about that, there's a football game that needs to be won. I love the Bombers. You know what? I'm sticking with my prediction from when we talked to Clint earlier this week. Bombers 29, TiCats 18. Bombers win, Bombers cover, and we hit the over, and everyone lives happily ever after. Remo, can we get an official prediction on the record for you before we wrap it up?
Yeah, same score as 2019. I'm betting that right now. What is that?
33-12.
No, I think Bombers 28, TiCats 13.
I like it. 28-13. So Remus has the under right now, but
that's
still a nice win for the Bomber. Well, 43.5, 44.
Yeah, I don't think
23 plus 18 is, by my calculations, 41.
41. Okay, so then I guess I'm technically under. And then Christopher Metz says, if there's a parade on Tuesday, will there be a show? We'll have to, we're
Yes.
taking it day by day. We'll do a show, but I guess the timing might be different. So make sure you hit the notification button. Do that.
Perfect segue.
Yes.
Perfect segue. You see the bell, folks? The YouTubers out there, hit
Yes.
the bell, especially next week. If there is some additional content or some things we're doing outside of our normal 1 to 3, we'll have it for you. But the beauty of YouTube and the podcast, if you miss it, you can rewind 10 minutes. You can check it out 2 hours later. It'll all be there for you. But yeah, unlike the last time when we were basically chained to a desk on Pembina Highway, that's not the case this year. Winnipeg Sports Talk will be wherever the Blue Bombers are coming back from the game, if it ends the way we all hope it will be, and that's with another Grey Cup championship. It's going to be an awesome weekend. Thanks so much for the support, everyone. 6,000 subs. Could not have done it without you. Tell a friend. On our way to 7K from here, and hopefully on our way to an amazing weekend. Looking forward to the hockey game tonight, and of course the game on Sunday, and another great week of shows next week. And we can't do it without our sponsors. If you have the opportunity to support them, please do. Let them know you heard about them from Winnipeg Sports Talk. The Nick and Nikki DQ Group, Little Brown Jug, perfect for Grey Cup Sunday. Of course, our friends at Boston Pizza, big bomber parties at all the BPs on the weekend, but BP Polo Park is where it's happening. Princess Auto, another Bomber sponsor. Canadian Club, the official whiskey of the Bombers. Our friends at Coolbet Canada, where we will be hopefully cashing winning bets on the Bombers. Not AutoCorp, Royal Sports, where you can get all your Bomber gear before the game on the weekend. Manitoba Battery, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, and the guys that'll get you looking fine, F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Folks, have an awesome weekend. And to finish it off, all I got to say is go Blue. See you Monday.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.